Hello everyone, before the starting of the video I would like to request you all to like and subscribe. That's it, thank you and enjoy. The birth of the gods. There was no light, no wind, not even silence. Just chaos. It wasn't evil, it wasn't kind, it just was. A swirling nothing, not dark or bright, not asleep or awake. It stretched in every direction, with no beginning and no end. And for a long time, it didn't move. It just existed, wrapped in itself like a coiled god. Then, chaos breathed, one long, slow breath. And from that breath, the first beings began to stir. From chaos, the birth of the myths. The myths we tell don't contradict each other. They are echoes of the same breath, shaped by different tongues. In the east, chaos moved again, and from it came a cosmic egg. Inside that egg, all elements churned. Fire, water, earth, wind, time, everything, trapped in a swirling storm. And at the center slept Pangu, the giant. His body was massive, hair like storm clouds, skin like stone, breath like wind. When he woke, he stretched, and cracked the egg open. The light flew upward, the dark fell below. He held them apart with his arms, and for thousands of years, he grew. Taller, stronger, each breath shaping a bit more sky, a bit more land. And when he died, his body became the world. Mountains from his bones, rivers from his blood. His left eye became the moon, his right, the sun. But he wasn't the only one who came from chaos. In the west, a mound in the waters. In another place, chaos birthed new, the dark water. Deep and endless. Then, without warning, a single mound rose. A dry spot in an ocean of black. From that mound came autumn. He didn't have parents or shape. He willed himself into form. From his breath, he made the wind and the mist, Shu and Tefnut. From them came Jeb, earth, and Nut, sky, who loved each other too much. They wouldn't separate. So Shu pushed Nut upward and held her there. That became the sky. Stars dotted her skin, rain fell from her arms. And so, day and night began. In the north, ice met fire. Far away, where chaos touched neither sun nor water, there was only Ginnungagap. A wide, frozen void. To the north, ice. To the south, fire. And where they met, melted. Out of that melt came Ymir, the first giant. From his sweat came more giants, and from his legs came beasts too strange to name. Beside him stood a cow, Audumla, licking ice to live. Inside the ice, she found Buri, the first god, who had a son, Bor. And Bor married a frost woman and had 3 sons. Odin, Vili, and Ve. These 3 didn't want to live in a world ruled by a giant. So they killed Ymir. From his corpse, they built a world. Flesh became land, bones became mountains, skull became the sky, blood became the sea, and to keep the dark out, they made Midgard, a realm wrapped in Ymir's brows. But the giants survived, angry and waiting. In the center, the whispering fire. And again, chaos moved. This time gently, like a sigh through silk. From that whisper came sound, a single, endless vibration, Aum. That sound became thought, that thought became flame. And from it, 3 figures stepped forward. Brahma, who created. Vishnu, who preserved. Shiva, who destroyed. They didn't fight, they danced. Creation, life, death, over and over. The world they built wasn't straight, it curved in cycles. One age fell into another like drops in a river. And through that flow, the gods kept watch, waiting for the age to turn. The kami descend. Then, chaos gave birth to something else, 2 spirits standing on the floating bridge of heaven. Izanagi and Izanami. They looked down at a world without shape. So Izanagi dipped his spear into the sea and stirred. The drops that fell became islands. They descended, and from their union came more gods, wind, fire, stone, forest. But when Izanami gave birth to fire, it burned her from the inside. She died. Izanagi chased her to the underworld, but she had changed. Rot had taken her. She told him not to look. He did anyway. What he saw broke him. He fled and sealed the underworld forever. Then he bathed to cleanse the death from his skin, and from that act, 3 children were born. Amaterasu, the sun, Tsukuyomi, the moon, Susanoo, the storm. And the heavens were no longer dark. And the kami multiplied. Greco realm. And then, at the center of it all, deep and still, came a different kind of nothing. Not water, not sky, not sound, just chaos, a gap, not angry, not gentle, just there. And from it came Gaia, Earth, thick and breathing, womb of all. Tartarus, the endless pit, locked in darkness. Eros, not love, but the force of connection, binding one thing to another. Nyx, night, pure, starless. Erebus, shadow, not evil, just empty. Gaia gave birth to Oranos, the sky. They lay together, heaven pressing down on earth. Children came quickly. The Titans, but Oranos feared them, buried them in Gaia's womb. She cried. One son, Cronus, took the blade Gaia forged, a sickle made from her bones and fury. He struck his father. Oranos fell, his blood fed the sea, and from it rose more beings. More rage, more gods. Cronus took the throne, he ruled with Rhea, his sister. But he feared his children the way his father feared him. So when they were born, he swallowed them, one by one, until Rhea hid her sixth child, a boy, with eyes like a storm. She wrapped him in gold and hid him in a cave, guarded by spirits and mountain wolves. Zeus. The sky didn't roar, the earth didn't shake. Not yet, but something in the air changed. The gods were no longer just ideas or forces. Now they had faces, they had stories, and Zeus would be the one to finish what the others started. Mount Dicte. Alright, first off, where the hell am I? Tiny fists, bare feet, blanket made of what felt like goat butt. A drafty cave, and right in front of him, a goat udder. Nope, no, nope, I am not doing this. He turned his head to protest, but his mouth instinctively latched. The milk hit his tongue like ambrosia and betrayal. Oh gods, I'm drinking goat milk straight from the source. This is my life now. He pulled back and tried to scream, but it came out like an angry baby chirp. Wait, why do I sound like a dying squirrel? What happened to my voice? Where is my voice? He threw a tantrum punch into the dirt. A small crack popped through the stone floor. Outside, thunder rumbled, a soft one, like the sky chuckling. The goat bleated, unfazed. A bird flew into a wall. Somewhere, a nymph fainted from pure dramatic energy. Cool, I'm a baby with lightning powers. In a cave, being breastfed by a damn goat. Love that for me. He flopped backward and stared at the ceiling. Whoever did this better be ready for lightning bolts. 14 comments, 0 votes, send gifts. Cronus. Mount Dicte, 5 years later. A boy stood at the edge of the mountain, white hair whipping in the wind like lightning made flesh. His body was young, yeah, maybe 10 at best, but there was something wrong with that number, he was actually 5. The muscle on him was already sharp, like his bones were forged instead of grown. His eyes, bright, electric blue, stared down at the clouds below like he owned them. Because he kind of did. This was Zeus. Well, now Zeus. Before this life, he was someone else, someone from another world. Regular, mortal, boring, he didn't know how or why, but waking up sucking goat milk in a cold cave wasn't exactly on his bucket list. For weeks, he thought this was some weird medieval magic fantasy world. That is, until the nymphs called him Zeus. And then everything clicked. Oh, he had whispered. I'm that Zeus, king of Olympus, lightning god, beard guy. The one who overthrows Daddy Dearest and takes the universe by storm. At first, he didn't know how to take it. Should he follow fate, or just chill and live his second life milking goats and roasting fish? But it didn't matter, not really, because as long as Cronus still breathed, he'd always be a threat. And deep down, Zeus knew, he wasn't built to play it safe. So, the moment he could walk, he started training. Punching boulders, running cliffs, meditating under waterfalls. Okay, that last one only lasted 3 minutes. He got bored. But he didn't stop, and one day, just after nearly zapping a tree by sneezing too hard. Ding! A floating screen popped up in front of him. Olympian Codex System version 0.1. Welcome, Zeus. Initializing divine interface. Checking faith resonance. Status. Stable. Divine tier. Fledgling deity. Current realm influence. 0.7%. System features unlocked. 1/12. He blinked. Then blinked again. What the hell is this? Tutorial mode. Godhood. He tapped the screen. It reacted. Open status tab. Name. Zeus. Title. None. Divine tier. 1. Fledgling deity. Faith level. Local 10 nymphs, 2 spirits, 1 goat. Divine power. 8/100. Skills. Lightning flicker LV. 1. Occasionally zaps things when emotionally unstable. Thunder shout LV. 1 causes minor tremors in nearby wildlife. Smite locked. Ether control locked. Call of Olympus locked. Realm crafting locked. Pantheon command locked. Ascendancy mode locked. Zeus squinted at the screen. Wow, my power level is just slightly above a slightly angry toaster. He scrolled. Oh look, I have 10 believers. Half of them don't wear clothes and the other one is a goat. Very impressive. Truly divine. He tapped the lightning flicker icon. A jolt popped out of his hand and zapped a nearby rock. It exploded. Okay, that was kinda cool. Then he grinned. That wild, confident grin that didn't care if he was a kid, didn't care if he was outclassed, outnumbered, or fated to die in some prophecy-fueled war. Because now he had a system. Alright, Cronus, keep breathing while you can, Zeus muttered, stretching his arms. But just so you know, your kid's got cheat codes now. And above him, clouds started swirling. Mission unlocked. Awaken the god within. Reach divine power level 20. Unlock skill. Smite. Reward. Weapon slot activation. Divine armor tier 1. Zeus cracked his knuckles and turned to the forest. Time to go find something stupid and punch it. The Titan's court, Mount Othrys. The doors of Ray's chamber slammed open. Out stepped Cronus, king of the Titans, ruler of the world, and god of time itself. His face was carved from stone, sharp lines etched deeper by years of silent frustration. His golden eyes were cold, and his steps were thunderous, like time itself was stomping through the palace. He didn't say a word, just clenched his fists and walked. The guards bowed low, none dared meet his gaze. From behind the stone pillars, the wind shifted, and a familiar voice broke the heavy air. Rough morning. Cronus turned his head just slightly. Standing with arms folded, calm as a still ocean, was Oceanus, eldest of the Titans, draped in robes that shimmered like flowing water. He raised a brow, a faint smirk tugging at his lips. If I were Rhea, I wouldn't let you lay with me either. Everything stopped. The birds, the breeze, even the sunlight seemed to hesitate. Cronus turned fully now, his expression darkening like the sky before a storm. Watch your words, Oceanus. Oceanus shrugged casually, stepping forward. I mean, really, you swallowed all your kids. What kind of pillow talk is that? Hey darling, remember our son Hades? Yeah, he's somewhere in my spleen. Cronus's face twitched. You think this is a joke? He growled. A prophecy was spoken. One of my children will rise against me. I did what had to be done. Oceanus tilted his head, and in doing so, you guaranteed it. That hit. Cronus's hand twitched toward the blade at his waist, but Oceanus didn't flinch. His voice stayed calm, rippling with quiet wisdom. There are better ways to keep your children from killing you than eating them, brother. Like what? Cronus snapped. Coddling them, letting them grow, train, and one day slit my throat in my sleep. Oceanus sighed, rubbing his temples like he'd had this conversation too many times. You could guide them, teach them, make them loyal, not afraid. You rule like the end is already written, and that's exactly how you bring it closer. Don't lecture me on fate, Cronus snapped. I crushed Oranos with my own hands. I made this era. And you'll bury it just as fast if you keep ruling like your father, Oceanus said, voice sharp now. The air between them cracked, tense and ancient. Then, without another word, Cronus turned and walked away, cloak dragging behind like a curtain of dusk. Oceanus watched him go, eyes unreadable. You've set the clock ticking, brother, he muttered to himself. And time doesn't serve you anymore. It never does. Far above Mount Othrys, the sky rolled. Clouds trembled. A distant storm was forming. And far away, deep in the heart of Crete, a boy with lightning in his bones was training to end the age of Titans. 13 comments 0 votes send gifts. The Chorits and training. Mount Dicte was quiet that morning. The sky hung low with clouds, but no rain came. Just wind, soft, steady, moving through the rocks like it was listening. Down in the sacred grove, hidden by twisting trees and stone pillars, Zeus stood surrounded by the Chorits. The warriors moved in perfect rhythm, spinning, stomping, clashing their weapons together like a ritual dance. Dust kicked up around them, forming a storm of motion and noise. And in the middle of it, barefoot and shirtless, was a 10-year-old boy with white hair and a fire in his eyes. He moved like he belonged there. Like the storm was his. He's grown into a fine young man, mother, Rhea said quietly. She stood at the edge of the grove, her voice soft, hands folded in front of her. Her long crimson robe swayed with the wind. Golden bands wrapped her arms, and a crown of twisted olive branches sat gently on her head. She looked regal, but tired. There was grief behind her eyes, a silence that never left her since Cronus swallowed their children. Beside her stood a much older figure, taller, broader, carved more from nature than flesh. Gaia, the Earth Mother. Her skin shimmered like sunlit bark. Moss grew along her bare shoulders, and her hair was woven from vines and leaves, braided by time itself. She didn't speak often, but when she did, the mountain listened. Gaia's gaze was fixed on Zeus. He grows fast, she said, her voice like deep soil, warm and unshakable. Faster than Cronus will expect. Rhea smiled faintly, her fingers curling around her robes. He's reckless, talks back, breaks things just to see how they work. He nearly shocked one of the courts unconscious last week. Gaia's lips curved, almost a smile. He is the sky, Rhea. He was born to break. Rhea looked down, her voice cracked a little. He was also born to fight his father. To kill him, and she hesitated. I don't know if I can survive losing another child. Even if he wins. Gaia placed a hand on her daughter's shoulder, roots softly wrapping around Ray's wrist like a quiet embrace. You won't lose him, he is not like the others. He carries 2 souls now. Rhea blinked. You knew. Gaia nodded slowly, eyes never leaving the boy in the storm. From the moment he cried lightning. A soul reborn, guided here by fate. That boy is not just your son, Rhea. He is the storm that ends an age. Thunder cracked in the distance. Zeus threw a punch, and one of the courts stumbled back, laughing. Rhea exhaled deeply. Then may the fates have mercy on Cronus. Back to Zeus and the courts. The storm clouds circled above the mountain like they were watching, waiting. The ground beneath Zeus's feet vibrated gently, little cracks of static snapping in the air. His white hair swayed even without wind, lifted by raw energy as arcs of lightning danced over his arms and shoulders, weaving through his fingers like living threads. He stood shirtless, barefooted, covered in dirt, bruises, and pride. His eyes shimmered with electricity, and his grin hadn't left his face since the last explosion. Across from him, the court stood in formation. Weapons drawn, armor glowing faintly under the dimming sun. Dion stepped forward, flames rising off his twin axes like they were hungry. Now, he said, voice loud and deep, echoing around the canyon. Time for your final lesson, young god. Zeus blinked. Final lesson. He tilted his head, lightning crackling over his neck. What is it? How to grow a beard like yours? The warriors snorted, except Nema, who was already spinning one of her wind scythes around her finger with a smirk. No, pretty boy, she called out. Your final lesson is how to not get smacked by all 7 of us at once. Zeus laughed. So it's a group hug, but with weapons. Exactly, she grinned. We call it training, but it's really just stress relief. Oh good. Zeus cracked his knuckles, lightning bursting off his shoulders. I was worried you guys were going soft. Syrah stepped forward, her tonfa rings humming with silent energy. She didn't speak, just bowed her head. Koros planted his shield into the earth, standing tall like a wall of steel and stone. Thelos cracked his knuckles, the ground around his feet rippling in sync. Myra notched an arrow without looking. Varkan swung his hammer over his shoulder, grumbling, if this brat fries my beard again, I'm shoving that hand of his up his divine. All right, Dion shouted, cutting him off. He looked back at Zeus. We've trained your body, we've trained your power, now we train your will. Zeus rolled his neck, and here I thought you were going to say, friendship, or something. Cute, Dion smirked. Try not to die. Then he charged. Axes blazing. The circle moved. Dion was first, a storm of flame and steel. Zeus dodged to the left, barely, lightning pulsing off his body to propel him backward. As soon as his foot touched the ground, Syrah was already there, silent and swift. Her tonfa struck, 1 2 3. Zeus caught the second hit with his forearm, crack, and flipped backward, landing beside Nema. She grinned. You're doing great. Then she kneed him in the chest. Wham! He flew across the field, bounced twice, and rolled to a stop near Thelos, who raised a rock wall. Zeus groaned. I was doing great. Thelos raised a brow and swung. Zeus ducked, barely, and responded with a bolt of lightning straight to the ground. A pulse exploded outward, scattering dirt and breaking the wall apart. Myra's arrow flew past his cheek. A warning shot, the next one would hit. Varkan landed in front of him like a falling star, hammer raised. Surprise! The old smith roared. Zeus grinned and clapped both hands together. Boom! The thunder shockwave sent Varkin sliding, cursing all the way. For a second, everything went quiet. Zeus stood in the middle of the circle, panting, sparks flicking off his skin. Okay, definitely not a group hug. Above the mountain, Rhea and Gaia watched from a high ledge. Rhea smiled softly. He's holding his own. Gaia nodded. But the real test is not strength. Then what is it? Gaia's eyes narrowed. It's whether he rises when they bring him down. Back on the field, Dion raised a hand. The Chorits regrouped. Zeus wiped blood from his lip. So, round 2. Nema winked. Nope. She leaned her scythe against her shoulder. Round 10. Zeus sighed. You people need hobbies. Then he dropped into a stance, eyes glowing. All right, come break your god. And the circle charged. Smite. Mount Dictee. The sound of weapons clashing echoed across the mountain like war drums. The earth shook with every step. Dust kicked into the air. Sparks danced like fireflies. This wasn't a training ground anymore, it was a battleground. Zeus stood in the center of it all, his chest heaving, muscles tensed, lightning crawling across his arms like it was alive and waiting. His fists were bruised, knuckles bloodied, and his whole body throbbed from impact after impact, but his eyes were thrilled. Come on, he yelled, laughing as Koros swung his massive shield toward him. Zeus ducked under the arc, slid across the dirt, and rolled to his feet just in time to leap over Sira's silent strike. An arrow from Myra clipped his shoulder, but he didn't even flinch. The spark in his blood was burning brighter now. He was getting faster, stronger, but they weren't holding back anymore either. Dion came in from the right, flame axes roaring. Zeus met him head on. Their weapons didn't clash, they exploded. Boom, lightning met flame, and the blast knocked both fighters back 10 feet. Zeus landed in a crouch, sliding to a stop, sparks flying around his body. Then, ding, a soft chime echoed in his head. His body froze for a moment, eyes flickering. Then came the golden light. A system screen opened before him, floating, shining with divine code and power. Olympian Codex, system upgrade. Level up. Divine power 2100ths. New skill unlocked. Smite LV.1. Divine weapon unlocked. Skybreaker gauntlets, tier 1. Divine armor unlocked. Aegis scale, tier 1. Zeus blinked. Wait, I got loot. He smirked. Now that's my kind of training reward. Skybreaker gauntlets, tier 1. Forged from storm-forged iron, infused with raw ether. Increases lightning output and punch impact by 300%. Aegis scale, tier 1. Lightweight divine armor. Adapts to the user's form. Reduces incoming damage by 50% and channels divine flow more efficiently. Smite LV.1. Call down a concentrated bolt of divine lightning to obliterate a target. Warning. Overkill likely. The Chorits paused as Zeus stood there, glowing like a storm ready to erupt. System, equip, Zeus whispered, grinning. Lightning surged around him, then snapped inward. A pulse of raw divine power burst from his chest. The wind howled, trees bent, the ground beneath his feet cracked. When the light faded, he was no longer bare-handed. Thick silver-blue gauntlets clung to his arms, etched with glowing runes that pulsed like a heartbeat. His torso was now wrapped in layered scales of shimmering divine metal, light yet solid, forming the chestplate of the Aegis scale. He looked down at his arms. Oh hell yeah, Dion narrowed his eyes. What did you just put on? Zeus raised his gauntleted fists and smiled. New gear, let's test it out. Nema charged first. Her wind scythes curved in from both sides. Zeus ducked, pivoted, then punched the air. The force of it created a shockwave, crack. She was blown back mid-spin, barely landing on her feet. Varkin yelled from across the field, Oi! That's cheating. Not cheating, Zeus shouted back. Leveling up. Koros stormed in, shield first. Zeus didn't dodge this time. He met the charge. His gauntlets lit up. Boom. The impact created a crater. Koros was pushed back, feet digging trenches in the earth. Myra loosed 3 arrows. Zeus spun, knocking one aside with his arm, letting the other strike his armor. They bounced off harmlessly. Nice aim, he yelled. Terrible damage. She gritted her teeth. That armor's annoying. Thelos raised a spike of earth. Zeus smashed through it with one fist like it was made of paper. Sira moved in fast, spinning, silent. But Zeus was faster now. He caught her mid-strike, gently flipping her over his shoulder into the grass. "Still love you though," he muttered as she groaned. Only Dion remained. He stepped forward slowly, fire swirling around his axes, face serious. Zeus raised his fists. "No jokes now." Dion smiled. "Show me what you've got, king of the sky." Zeus took a breath, then raised his hand to the heavens. Lightning screamed above the clouds. The air grew still. Then, smite. The sky tore open. A single bolt of lightning, brighter than anything they'd ever seen, came crashing down with a scream of raw divine fury. It hit the ground right in front of Dion. Boom. The shockwave flattened the trees behind them. A massive crater burned into the earth. Dirt, rock, and flames spiraled upward like a mini volcano. When the smoke cleared, Dion was flat on his back, armor cracked, hair smoking. He groaned. "All right, lesson passed." Zeus stood in the middle of the crater, panting, arms lowered. The gauntlets still hummed with power. His grin was wide. "That," he whispered, "was the coolest thing I've ever done." The cohorts slowly got to their feet, coughing, limping, but smiling. Nema called out, "Next time you learn a new skill, maybe give us a heads up before you nuke the field." Zeus raised his hand again. "Want me to smite a warning shot?" "No," they all yelled in unison. Above the cliff, Rhea watched with wide eyes. Gaia stood beside her, unmoved. Rhea whispered, "He's awakening too fast." Gaia nodded once. "The world is shifting. Cronus will feel it soon." And miles away, atop a dark throne of stone and fear, Cronus opened his eyes. He felt it, a spark in the world he couldn't name, familiar, and dangerous. "What is this?" he whispered. 3 comments 0 votes send gifts. Thundervoid Realm, Mount Dictys, crest of the world. The sun hovered low, casting long shadows over the craggy peaks of Mount Dictys. The air was thin and sharp, every breath tasting like clean stone and wind. Clouds drifted beneath the summit like lazy spirits, glowing orange under the fading light. At the very top, near the jagged crown of the mountain, a boy stood. White hair, wind-tossed, eyes crackling with electric blue. Barefoot, slight bruises lining his arms like battle medals. His new divine gauntlets shimmered faintly under the sun. Zeus cupped his hands to his mouth and shouted into the sky. "All right, Grandma, I know you're watching. Get down here, already." A pause. Silence. Just the whistle of the wind and the cry of a distant eagle. Then the stones began to shift. Flowers bloomed between the cracks. Moss spread under his feet in soft spirals. The temperature rose slightly, like a warm heartbeat pressing against the earth. And then, she stepped out of the mountainside itself. Gaia, tall, ancient, barefoot, wearing robes of vines and woven bark. Her long green hair flowed behind her like slow rivers, and her eyes glowed with the weight of time. Wherever she walked, the land bloomed. She smiled as she approached him, tilting her head. "What do you want, little lad?" Zeus raised a brow at her. "That's not a way to talk to your favorite grandson." His voice was slightly off, he was still missing a back tooth, but his tone was all attitude. Gaia chuckled, a deep, warm laugh that made the clouds curl tighter around the mountain's edge. "You do know I have numerous grandchildren, right?" Zeus didn't flinch. He folded his arms, chin high. "I know, but let's not pretend. We both know I'm the favorite." She raised an eyebrow, amused. "Really? Come on," he said, stepping forward. "Look at me. I'm adorable, powerful, dramatic. I yell at the sky. You like that?" Gaia snorted. "You're insufferable. And yet, you're smiling." She couldn't help it. Her laughter rolled like distant thunder, soft and full of fondness. She reached forward and ruffled his hair, even as it sparked gently from leftover lightning. "All right, you brat," she said, eyes softening. "What do you want?" Zeus looked up at her, serious now. He hesitated for a second, then said, "I need a realm." That made her pause. "A what?" "A secret one," he said. "Somewhere hidden, off the grid, beyond Cronus's reach. Somewhere I can train, grow, break things without blowing up half the mountain." Gaia narrowed her eyes, thoughtful. "You've already begun awakening. That power inside you, it's going to attract attention, Zeus. Even now, the threads of fate are tightening." "Exactly," Zeus said. "I don't want to wait around and hope I'm strong enough when Cronus shows up. I want to be ready." He clenched his fists, lightning dancing between his fingers. "I'm not just some prophecy kid. I'm gonna take the throne. And when I do, I want to earn it." Gaia studied him in silence. His body was still young, but his soul, she could see it. Ancient, wild, stubborn, heavy with power that hadn't been unlocked yet. She turned to face the mountain's edge. Follow me. The descent beneath the mountain. They walked in silence, down paths that didn't exist to mortal eyes. With every step Gaia took, the mountain opened for her, walls parting, stones moving like they breathed. The air grew colder, older. Eventually, they reached a massive stone arch carved into the mountainside, covered in glowing runes and spiraling roots. Gaia placed her hand on the stone. It pulsed once, and then split open. Behind it was nothing, just a swirling, black and gold void. This place exists between heartbeat and breath, she said. A pocket realm only the mountain remembers. Zeus stepped forward, eyes wide. Whoa, it will obey only you, she continued. Your will shapes it. Train here, scream here, destroy and rebuild. No one will find you, not gods, not titans. Zeus took a breath, then stepped in. The void shimmered and shifted. Suddenly, he was standing on floating stone platforms drifting over endless skies. Glowing islands spun in the distance. Waterfalls poured from nothing and vanished into light. Storms crackled quietly beneath him like a sea of thunderclouds. It was perfect. This is insane, Zeus muttered, grinning. I want to live here. Behind him, Gaia smiled. Then start building it. System update. New realm registered. Thundervoid. Realm link bound to host. Realm control. 1% training mode activated. Tip. Your imagination is your weapon here. The more divine power you gain, the more the realm will evolve with you. Zeus turned, eyes bright with electricity and awe. Thank you. Gaia nodded. You'll need this space soon. Cronus will begin searching. You've already sent ripples through fate. Zeus exhaled, glancing at his fists. Then I'll make sure the next time fate sends something for me. He smirked. I send lightning back. Silence. Zeus stood alone on a floating stone platform, high above the swirling storm sea that raged far below. The wind danced around him, tugging at his white hair, licking sparks off his shoulders. His divine armor shimmered faintly. The new gauntlets hummed with quiet power. Ding! A golden screen flared to life in front of him, hovering with a soft hum. Bright letters etched themselves across the light. Olympian Codex, status window. Name, Zeus. Title, none. Divine tier, 2 minor deity. Faith level, local 10 nymphs, 2 spirits, 1 goat. Divine power, 21 100ths. Skills, lightning flicker LV. 2. Passive lightning discharge, improved control. Sparks now arc with intention. Thunder shout LV. 2. Enhanced sound shockwave, can destabilize terrain and disorient enemies. Smite LV. 1. Call forth a bolt of focused divine lightning. Charges with emotional intensity. Zeus crossed his arms and leaned forward, squinting at the screen. Still no title. Rude. He tilted his head. And seriously, 1 goat. What does a guy gotta do to get international worship around here? The screen flickered. He closed it with a swipe, then turned his eyes to the endless sky above. His fingers clenched. Sparks danced between them, flickering with promise. I'm not leaving this place, he said to the wind, until these skills are maxed out. All of them. He looked at his fists. I want to shout loud enough to split mountains. I want my lightning to make the clouds scream. When I smite. He stepped forward to the edge of the platform, looking out at the storm below. I want the realm itself to tremble. He raised both hands to the sky. The clouds above twisted violently. A dozen lightning bolts crashed through the heavens like divine exclamation marks. System notice. Training realm difficulty increased. Enemy simulations activated. Adaptive beasts, tier 2 to 4. Warning. Death is painful here. Not permanent, but still very, very painful. Zeus grinned. Perfect. The storm howled, and from the shadows of the clouds below, figures began to rise. Shaped from darkness and lightning. Eyes glowing, claws dripping storm energy. The first of many. Zeus cracked his neck and stepped forward. All right, he lowered into a stance, lightning crawling up his legs. Let's see what it takes to become the god of gods. Then he launched himself into the sky, arms blazing, thunder roaring around him. And the training began. 6 comments 0 votes send gifts. Gaia's worries. Thundervoid 25 years later. Boom. Boom. Crack craw. The sky split open with every strike. Thunder roared like a war cry from the heavens. Lightning rained down in violent bursts, setting entire sky islands ablaze. Storm clouds twisted like beasts in pain, swirling above the battlefield. In the middle of it all, floating high above the chaos, he stood. Zeus, no longer a boy, not even a young man, a fully awakened god. He stood 2.8 meters tall, carved like a mountain of living thunder. His white hair flowed like storm clouds behind him, eyes glowing pure electric blue. Sparks clung to his skin like golden fireflies. Every breath he took sent tremors through the storm. His armor had changed, upgraded by the very storms he'd conquered. The Aegis scale now pulsed with layered divine energy, fused with lightning runes and celestial metal. The Skybreaker gauntlets were reforged, now heavier, stronger, inscribed with ancient titan-slaying glyphs. Below him, the beasts charged again, winged terrors built from thunder and shadows. He raised one hand casually. A bolt the size of a mountain came down like a falling god. Boom! The air burned. The clouds screamed. Zeus didn't even blink. He floated down slowly, boots touching a shattered platform, surrounded by the glowing ashes of his enemies. Then, ding! A massive golden screen flared into view before him, more complex and ornate than ever before. Divine runes spun around the edges. Olympian Codex, status window. Name: Zeus. Title: Stormborn King, Son of Fate, Sky Incarnate. Divine Tier: 7 Ascendant God. Faith Level: Expanding, recognized in multiple realms. Divine Power: 768 1/1000. Skills: Lightning Flicker LV. 6 Mastered. Lightning trails his every step. Passive Discharge can melt weapons. Can now chain multiple targets subconsciously. Thunder Shout LV. 5. Unleashes a concussive shockwave that can topple mountains and disrupt divine energy within a 200 meters radius. Smite LV. 4. Now capable of calling down divine class plasma bolts. Impact Radius: Catastrophic. Regenerates faster based on combat flow. Ether Step LV. 3. Allows teleportation through storm clouds, lightning veins, and ley lines. Can be used offensively to blink smash enemies. Stormcaller's Wrath LV. 2. Summons a localized tempest that adapts to the enemy's elemental weakness. Can be channeled through Skybreaker gauntlets. Divine Presence: Storm Crown LV. 1. Passive Aura: Lesser beings must pass a will check to approach. Induces awe, terror, or submission in non-divine foes. Zeus looked over the stats, smirking. About time the title section stopped looking so empty. He flicked the screen away and looked at the dark skies above. Clouds circled around him like they were waiting for orders. Then he turned his eyes to the far distance, beyond Thundervoid, beyond the veil Gaia had created for him all those years ago. He could feel Cronus now. The Titan King's grip on the world had started to shiver. The fear was creeping in. And Zeus, he was ready. He cracked his neck, lightning licking up his arms. All right, enough warm-ups. He raised a hand and ripped a glowing tear in space open, revealing the world outside. Mount Dictys, the battlefield waiting. He stepped through. Mount Othrys, the garden of stone. Moonlight spilled through the cracks in the high stone walls, washing the garden in cold silver. The flowers here didn't bloom like normal ones, they opened only under starlight, petals like crystal and frost. The air was still, too still, like the mountain was holding its breath. Rhea paced along the marble path barefoot, robes clinging to her as the night wind whispered through her hair. Her fingers twisted nervously. She looked haunted, tired. Her eyes darted toward the dark corridors behind her, as if Cronus might appear at any moment. 35 years, she muttered, voice low and sharp. 35 years of excuses. He's going to snap. He knows. She paused, chest rising and falling too quickly, hands gripping the edge of her robe like she might tear it. On the grass just ahead, lying with her head on a bed of roots and moss, was Gaia, barefoot, eyes half-lidded, as peaceful as the earth itself could be. She didn't even look up. You're walking in circles again, she said gently. Rhea blinked, startled, and turned. He's going to demand I lay with him, she said. And this time I don't have an excuse. I've used them all. The moon, the stars, divine sickness, fake headaches, rituals, grief. She dropped to her knees beside her mother, panic starting to rise in her throat like fire. If he touches me again, he'll know. He'll know Zeus' lives. Gaia didn't react right away. She reached out and plucked a glowing petal from the grass, examining it like it mattered more than Cronus himself. Then she smiled softly and said, "Why don't you come rest, child?" Her tone was light, teasing. You can think of a new excuse in the morning. Something creative this time. Say you've taken a vow of silence and celibacy under moonlight. Rhea almost laughed, almost. She flopped down beside Gaia and stared up at the stars. He's growing impatient. I feel it in the air. He looks at me now like I'm a puzzle he hasn't solved yet. Gaia nodded. That's because you are. Mother, Rhea whispered, eyes watering, what if he finds him? What if Zeus isn't ready? Gaia finally turned her eyes toward her daughter. There was no fear in them. Just something ancient, slow, certain. He is ready, she said simply. More than you know. The stars pulsed above them. And far, far away, beyond the reach of Cronus's vision, a storm began to gather in Mount Dicte. One not of clouds or rain, but of return. Rhea stood at the edge of the balcony, the cold wind tugging at her robes. Her eyes were fixed far in the distance, toward the southern sky, toward Mount Dicte. A pulse had echoed through the world minutes ago. A tremor of power, not loud, not explosive, just deep, like the heartbeat of the earth had skipped. She felt it in her bones, in her breath, her lips parted, voice soft, almost like a prayer. He's back. Her hand pressed against her chest, and for the first time in decades, the weight she'd carried didn't feel so suffocating. My son is back, Zeus is back, mother. A small smile broke across her face. Not wide, not proud, just relieved, like her soul had finally exhaled. Behind her, Gaia stood still beneath the shadow of an ancient olive tree, her long green robes tangled with vines and starlight. But unlike Rhea, Gaia didn't smile. She frowned. Deeply. Her voice was low, heavy with age and understanding. Yes, he is back. She looked at the sky, not with joy, but with sorrow. Because with Zeus's return, the storm had officially begun. The wheel of fate was turning again. The Titans would feel it. The gods would rise. The war would come. And when it did, not all of her children would survive it. 6 comments 0 votes send gifts. Meeting the Oceanids. The Whispering Spring, realm of the river maidens. The moon hung high over a silver spring tucked between rolling hills and silent stone. Crickets hummed softly in the grass, and the water sparkled like glass under the starlight. The air smelled of lavender and old magic. By the riverbank, a woman knelt, her fingers dancing along the surface of the spring, sending ripples across the mirror-like water. Her hair flowed like seawater, long and dark with silver streaks that shimmered when the light touched them. Her eyes were calm, calculating, holding the weight of foresight. Her robes were pale blue and white, made of silk and mist. Métis, daughter of Oceanus, one of the Oceanids, the goddess of wisdom, strategy, and deep counsel. A smile tugged at her lips as she turned her head. Sister, she said, voice smooth and soft like the tide. How pleasant to see you again. Across from her, lounging barefoot in the shallow water with arms resting on a rock, was a sharp-eyed woman with a voice that could bend steel. Styx. Her hair was long, black as obsidian, falling like a blade across one shoulder. Her presence was cold and commanding, her eyes sharp with quiet defiance. Her dark robes clung like shadows, trimmed with faint silver patterns that pulsed with divine authority. It's been too long, Métis, Styx replied, smirking. You've been hiding in the quiet places again. Métis raised a brow. Unlike you, I enjoy peace. Peace is overrated, Styx said, flicking water toward her with her fingers. Laughter echoed behind them. On the river stones sat 2 more figures, both radiant and humming with elemental grace. Adia, draped in robes of deep green, her hair glowing with bioluminescent streaks like sea kelp. Her eyes glowed soft blue, and she smiled often. Her aura pulsed with knowledge and healing. And beside her, legs dipped lazily into the water, was Doris, playful and free, wearing flowing fabric that looked like it had been woven from sunlight on waves. Her laughter was bright and always near. You two are always like this, Doris said, flicking water between them. Métis with her riddles, Styx with her daggers. Balance, Adia said, plucking a flower from the river's edge. That's what makes us sisters. Métis chuckled lightly, the sound like wind passing through reeds. What are we if not the last quiet voices in this loud, loud world? Styx leaned back, eyes scanning the sky. Not for long. The others grew quiet. Adia looked toward her. You felt it too. Styx nodded slowly. Something has returned. Something powerful. The sisters were still talking when the air shifted. Just a breeze at first. Then a crackle. A strange pulse rolled through the ground like the world took a deep breath. Every one of them froze. The soft hum of the spring went still. Even the water seemed to wait. They turned, and there, emerging from a part in the mist like he walked straight out of a myth not yet written, stood Zeus. He wasn't hiding his presence. No need to. His body was impossible to miss, towering, broad-shouldered, a wall of sculpted power wrapped in loose armor and divine glow. His skin shimmered with a storm-washed bronze tone, marked with faint scars that looked earned. Each step crackled faintly beneath his boots. His white hair fell over his shoulders like wild cloud waves, and his face, handsome in a way that made silence feel dangerous, was relaxed, like he wasn't the least bit surprised to be admired. He raised his hands in a casual peace offering, voice low and warm. "Hey, I mean no harm." A smile tugged at the edge of his mouth. "I'm Zeus, son of Cronus and Rhea. And before you say it, yes, I know. Dad has a snack problem." He tapped his chest. "I'm the one who got away." He glanced at the shimmering spring, steam curling like fingers. "Just finished a very long training session. Body's sore, mind's fried. I could use a proper soak." He pointed at the water, tone half joking. "So, mind if I borrow a corner?" Silence followed, the kind of silence where everyone's brain goes completely blank for 2 seconds. Then, Doris tilted her head, letting her eyes wander very deliberately across Zeus's figure, from the thick neck to the arms that looked like they could crush boulders to the abs that had no reason to be that defined. She let out a low whistle. "Well, hello, muscles." Adia blinked slowly, lips parting just slightly. Her cheeks turned pink. "That's a lot of divinity," she murmured. Styx gave him a once-over, arms crossed, her stare cold but clearly sizing up every inch of him. Only Métis stayed composed, mostly. She tilted her head, eyes sharp but unreadable, like she was studying him for something beyond his looks. Something deeper. Zeus turned toward her, and that's when the name hit. Métis. His smile flickered, his whole body stilled for half a second. He knew that name. In his past life, he'd read her story. She was the one who helped Zeus outsmart Cronus during the Titanomachy. The mind behind the plan. The strategist. And later, swallowed, lost. The mother of Athena. He blinked, clearing his throat. "Nice to meet you all." His eyes settled on her again. Softer this time. "Especially you, Métis." Métis raised a brow. "Have we met?" Zeus smirked faintly. "Not yet." Doris giggled. "He's got riddles and abs. This one's trouble." Styx grunted. "If you're done being dramatic, take your bath." Zeus chuckled and stepped forward, peeling off the top half of his armor. His gauntlets came off with a hiss of heat and energy. As he lowered into the spring, the water glowed faintly, responding to his divine pressure. Steam rolled off him like a veil. The sisters returned to their rocks, but every now and then, eyes flicked his way. Zeus leaned back, resting his arms behind him on the edge of the spring, lightning still gently humming beneath his skin. And across the water, Métis watched him. She didn't know why, but she felt it too. Something was shifting, and it had Zeus's name on it. 10 comments, 0 votes, send gifts. Elixir of Unbinding. The Whispering Spring. Days later. The sky was golden with the fading sun, casting long shadows across the water. Steam curled lazily above the spring, and laughter, quiet, relaxed, bounced softly between the trees. Zeus lounged near the edge of the spring again, arms stretched out along the rocks, bare chest rising and falling steadily, lightning gently crackling in the air around him. His hair was tied back today, loosely, letting his face stay clear as he stared across the spring at Métis, who was pretending very hard not to notice how often he was watching her. The other sisters had stopped pretending. "You keep coming here like you own the place," came Styx's voice, sharp and amused from the far side of the spring. She sat with one leg dipped in the water, flicking a small wave toward him. "Aren't you afraid we'll tell the Titan King his precious son, Zeus, god of ego and thunder, is out here peeping on women while they bathe?" Her grin was wicked, her eyes sparkled with mischief. Zeus didn't flinch. He smirked and leaned forward, elbows resting on his knees. "Then you'd just be adding yourselves to the list of people I'll have to punish after I overthrow my dear old dad." He smiled. "Charming, dangerous, electric." Styx scoffed. "You think it's that easy? Just storm in, throw a lightning bolt, and poof, you're king of the cosmos." She flicked water toward him again. "Cronus is the Titan King for a reason. You don't just walk up to the throne and take it. Not even my father, Oceanus, dares say that freely." Zeus leaned back, staring up at the sky for a moment. "Maybe he's waiting." Styx frowned. Waiting. Zeus turned to look at her, eyes calm but burning with something deep. Ancient. Waiting for someone reckless enough to try. The spring went quiet. Métis finally looked at him, her expression unreadable. Doris blinked, wide-eyed. You're serious. Dead serious. Adia tilted her head. Even if you lose. Zeus grinned again, this time with teeth. Then I die trying. And even if I lose, Cronus will remember my name. There was silence again, but it was different this time. Heavy. Métis stood slowly, water dripping from her robes. She stepped closer, just enough that the light caught her eyes. Overthrowing Cronus isn't about power, she said softly. It's about patience, precision, timing. Zeus looked up at her, meeting her gaze. He didn't smile this time. That's why I need you. The wind stirred the trees. And for the first time, Métis didn't look away. And what would that be? Styx said, her voice wasn't mocking this time. Just steady, serious. Zeus looked at her, then at each of the sisters in turn. When his eyes landed on Métis, something in him steadied. Then he spoke. I need my siblings. Silence. The wind shifted. Zeus let the words hang in the air before continuing. They're in Cronus, still alive, trapped, waiting. His voice was quiet, low, but it hit like thunder under the surface. And I need to get them out. Doris blinked, stunned. You're going to make him throw them up. Basically, Zeus muttered, shrugging. Or rip him open, depends on how cooperative he's feeling. Styx stared. You want to fight Cronus, to free your brothers and sisters. The ones he ate. Zeus nodded without hesitation. Hestia, Demeter, Hera, Hades, Poseidon. They're not just names. They're mine, my blood, my responsibility. Adia's voice was soft. Even though you never met them. Zeus's jaw clenched slightly. I've lived with the weight of their silence my whole life. I don't need to meet them to know they matter. A long silence followed. Métis finally stepped forward, the water swirling gently at her ankles. You have no army, no allies, no realm under your name. And yet you speak like a king. Zeus looked at her, unwavering. Because I will be one. Métis studied him, long and hard, her mind turning like gears behind those ancient eyes. Then she smiled, small and sharp. Then I suppose we better make a plan. Styx sighed and leaned back. Oh great, I knew hanging out with him would end in war. Doris grinned. You're just mad he didn't fall for you. Quiet, river clown. Zeus smirked and raised a brow. So that's a yes. Styx rolled her eyes but didn't say no. Adia smiled softly. We'll help you, but you'll need more than lightning and bold words to take on Cronus. Zeus's grin returned, wild and bright. Good thing I've got more than that. He turned toward Métis. You in? Métis crossed her arms, then nodded slowly. Let's wake the gods. Deepwood Hollow. Nightfall among ancient roots. The moon had vanished behind a wall of dark clouds, and the forest below Mount Othrys pulsed with strange energy. Trees older than titans twisted upward like silent watchers, their leaves whispering secrets in a tongue older than stars. The sisters moved quietly through the undergrowth, their steps light, their presence cloaked. Zeus walked among them, his divine presence dulled, disguised beneath layers of woven mist from Adia's enchantments. This place stinks of curses, Styx muttered, brushing past a crooked tree bleeding black sap. That's how you know it's the right place, Métis replied, eyes scanning the dark. They came to a stop before a wide, moss-covered stone, cracked down the center. Métis knelt and placed a hand over it. The first ingredient, she said, is midnight bloom. A flower that only grows where time has slowed to a crawl. This grove is caught in a time fracture. One wrong step, and you'll age 100 years or revert into nothing. She looked at Zeus, ready to test that immortality of yours. Zeus smirked. Let's hope I age gracefully. He stepped forward into the fracture. The air shifted immediately. His vision blurred, sound slowed, but he kept walking. Electric sparks danced across his skin as his divine core pushed against the time-warping pressure. He spotted it, midnight bloom. A glowing, violet flower rooted in the hollow of a dead tree. Zeus reached forward, carefully, his gauntlet humming. He plucked it. The air snapped back to normal. He held it up. One down. Next. The river that doesn't flow. They traveled north to a hidden spring that ran backward, its current flowing from sea to source. A river cursed by Prometheus to hold the tears of the world, drops of grief from mortals who prayed but were never answered. To collect them, they needed a vessel blessed by both hope and sorrow. Doris provided the vessel, fashioned from her own hair and springwater woven by her hand. Zeus stood at the river's edge, looking at the shimmering current. "This river's full of regrets," Adia said softly. "It'll try to drown you in your own." Zeus didn't flinch. "Let it try." He stepped into the river. Visions struck him, flashes of the siblings he never met, swallowed before they could speak, laugh, dream. Of Rhea crying alone, of Métis, swallowed too, if fate stayed true. His knees buckled, but then he stood, and dipped the vessel into the current. The tears shimmered inside like starlight trapped in water. 2 down, last ingredient, the bone ash of a forgotten titan. This one was guarded, deep beneath the ruins of Animos, the wind-torn temple of a titan who once tried to steal Kronos' throne, lay the last trace of his body, ashes sealed in a stone urn behind divine wards. They arrived under moonless sky, Métis whispering spells as sticks shattered ward after ward with cursed blades. Inside the tomb, Zeus approached the altar. The urn pulsed with dead power. He reached for it, a shadow beast formed behind him, built from the titan's lingering rage. "Watch out," Styx shouted, but Zeus turned calmly and raised his hand. Smite. A single bolt of divine lightning pierced the monster like a divine spear. The beast shattered into dust. Zeus picked up the urn. 3. As they emerged into the night, Métis carried the ingredients in her satchel. "We have what we need," she said. "Now we brew the elixir of unbinding. Strong enough to make a titan vomit out a god." Zeus looked up at the stars. His smile was gone. "Get ready, I'm bringing my family home. Please check out this novel." Chaosgod 24 creators, thoughts. 4 comments, 0 votes, send gifts. I am Zeus. The edge of the whispering spring, midnight. The air shimmered softly under the pale moonlight. The elixir of unbinding glowed faintly inside a crystal vial, violet with silver streaks swirling like trapped starlight. It pulsed gently, as if it knew what it was made for. Métis held it in her hands, her fingers wrapped carefully around its smooth surface. Her expression was unreadable, but her eyes, those calm, sharp eyes, were locked on Zeus. "It's done," she said quietly, almost like a warning. "Now all that's left is to pour it into a drink and make Cronus swallow it." She extended the vial. Zeus took it with steady hands. No smile, no jokes, just a nod. He slipped it into the inside pocket of his tunic, the fabric magically reinforced to mask divine essence. Styx scoffed softly from the side. "And how exactly do you plan to serve him that drink? Walk up the mountain like you just left for milk and came back grown?" She folded her arms, clearly enjoying the idea of him getting vaporized on the spot. Zeus turned his head toward her, smirking. "Don't worry about that part, dear Styx." His voice was calm, almost too confident. "I already have it covered." He turned to Métis, who stepped closer without hesitation. Her gaze flicked down to where the elixir rested, then back to him. Zeus held her eyes for a moment. "I'll be back." Not a promise, a certainty. She nodded once, cool and composed. But her fingers twitched, just a little. Zeus gave her a small grin, then stepped back, hands glowing with divine light. His body shimmered, bones and flesh twisting into radiant wings and sharp talons. In seconds, he was no longer a man, but an eagle. Massive, golden-eyed, feathers crackling faintly with lightning. He launched into the air with a gust of wind that made the trees groan. His wings sliced through the night sky, each beat leaving a ripple of light behind. The sisters watched him go, silent and still. Styx clicked her tongue. "Show off." Doris grinned. "He's growing on you." "He's going to get himself killed," Styx said flatly, turning away. Métis remained where she stood, eyes on the sky. "No," she whispered under her breath. "He's going to change everything." Mount Othrys, shadow of the Titan court. Hours passed. The clouds over Mount Othrys swirled darker than usual. Massive statues of titans loomed at the base, eyes hollow, mouths carved open as if screaming. An eagle landed in the high trees. It shifted, folding into a man in seconds. Zeus stood now at the outer ring of the Titan stronghold. The scent of old power hung thick in the air, pressure that made the ground itself want to bow. But he didn't flinch. He reached into his tunic, felt the cool surface of the vial. His eyes narrowed. Time to knock on the front door. Mount Othrys, the Titan King's Hall. The throne room of Cronus was carved from black stone and folded time. Massive pillars spiraled upward like frozen tornadoes, each one etched with moving runes, names of enemies defeated, ages devoured, and moments erased. The very walls pulsed like they were alive, keeping rhythm with the heart of the Titan King himself. And at the center, atop a jagged obsidian throne, sat Cronus. He was massive, his presence a weight on the entire room. Robed in dark golds and shadows, his body held the stillness of a storm that hadn't moved in centuries. His eyes, deep, cold, and ancient, watched everything, even when they seemed half-closed. Before him, Titan guards stood in rows, armor made of celestial iron, expressions unreadable. The doors creaked open. Zeus entered, not in armor, not as a warrior, but cloaked in gray robes, hood drawn low, regal, calm, silent. By his side walked Rhea, dressed in flowing white, her face composed and unreadable. She had sent the letter days ago. A wanderer returns, bearing no sword. Let him offer a cup in peace. Cronus hadn't refused. He had been curious. Now, the room watched as the two walked side by side. Zeus's footsteps echoed louder than they should have. Every Titan eye followed him. He walked like he didn't fear death. Like the court belonged to him already. He stopped at the base of the steps to Cronus's throne. Rhea stepped forward. Her voice was soft but steady. My king, a traveler stands before you. A child of prophecy. Returned not to fight, but to share drink and speak plainly beneath your roof. A pause. Cronus's eyes slowly opened. His gaze fell on Zeus. He studied him long, too long. The silence stretched. Then, the Titan King spoke, his voice deep, slow, filled with distant thunder. You wear your father's name, boy. Zeus raised his head, lowering his hood. Eyes bright with lightning, hair like coiled clouds. I wear my own. Cronus's lip twitched. And you come to drink with me? Zeus nodded once. I thought it was time. From within his cloak, he brought forth a small flask, silver, carved with old oath marks. He held it up with respect. A gift from the edge of the world. The spring of truth and silence. May it honor your greatness. The flask contained the elixir of unbinding, masked by enchantment, woven with divine illusion. It would taste like vintage nectar, but once swallowed, it would tear open the gut of a god. Cronus stared. Then slowly, he lifted his hand. The guards stepped back. Rhea held her breath. Zeus stepped forward, eyes never leaving Cronus's. He handed him the flask. The Titan King took it in one massive hand. Strange, he muttered. Your face, it stirs something. Zeus tilted his head, smiling faintly. Must be the resemblance. Cronus looked down at the flask, then raised it to his lips. The silence was unbearable. Cronus raised the silver flask to his lips. His fingers, thick and calloused from eons of ruling through fear, gripped the metal as if it weighed more than it should. The room was still, too still. Rhea didn't blink, Zeus didn't breathe, and the Titans watched. The ancient king took a long, slow sip. The flask lowered. For a heartbeat, nothing happened. Cronus rolled the taste in his mouth. Strange, sweet, familiar, yet not. Curious flavor, he said, voice low. Reminds me of the drink Oceanus offered me before the war. Zeus said nothing. Rhea clutched her robes tighter, her fingertips white. Then, it hit. Cronus's breath caught. His body stiffened. His eyes widened for just a moment. And then he roared. What have you done? The room exploded with pressure. The air shattered like glass as divine energy erupted from the throne. The flask fell, clinking against the obsidian steps. Cronus's body arched, his hands clutching his stomach as an ancient, primal scream ripped through the court. The guards stumbled, stunned by the shockwave. The very walls cracked, symbols flashing violently across the stone. Zeus didn't move, his cloak fluttered in the storm of divine power. His expression was calm, eyes locked on Cronus. It's called the elixir of unbinding, he said, voice steady. Forged from forgotten rivers, time-warped flowers, and the ash of one your kind left to rot. Cronus dropped to one knee, vile and raw power surging in his throat. He snarled, trying to contain it, but it was too late. The magic worked fast, merciless. His stomach twisted, ether bent. And then, Hestia, a burst of golden flame shot out of Cronus's mouth, and in it, curled tightly and weak from years of darkness, appeared a glowing woman with fire in her breath. She hit the floor hard, coughing, gasping, but alive. Then, Demeter, Hera, Hades, Poseidon, one by one, they burst forth like stars being ripped from a black hole. Each child expelled in agony, each one glowing faintly, unconscious but alive. Gods, real gods, spilled into the marble of the throne room like divine seeds ready to awaken. Cronus screamed, Lightning flashed in Zeus's eyes. You stole their lives, he said quietly. I'm taking them back. Cronus rose, trembling, his veins glowing with fury. You dare. Zeus raised a hand. I do. He stepped forward, thunder cracking behind his voice. I am Zeus, and this realm has a new storm coming. 3 comments 0 votes send gifts. Father and son clash, Mount Othrys. Zeus didn't wait for Cronus to recover. He turned to Rhea, voice sharp and clear like thunder echoing through a canyon. Get them out of here. Now. Rhea snapped out of her frozen state, eyes darting to the 5 gods lying sprawled across the marble-like fallen stars. Hestia stirred faintly, golden flame flickering on her fingertips. Demeter moaned softly, vines crawling weakly around her hand. Hades and Poseidon were still, chests rising slowly. Hera twitched, lightning crackling faintly over her brow. Rhea dropped beside them without hesitation, her divine aura flaring with urgency. With a sweep of her hand, wind gathered under her children, lifting them gently but firmly from the ground. I'm not leaving without you, she started, her voice cracking. Zeus cut her off, not unkindly. You raised me for this. His tone was steady, sure. Now let me do what you couldn't. Behind them, Cronus staggered to his feet, body shaking like the sky was trying to tear itself apart. A river of divine bile ran from his mouth, glowing with cosmic filth, staining the throne steps. His golden robes were torn, black smoke rising from his skin. You filthy whelp, he roared, voice layered with cosmic tremors. You defy me under my own roof. Zeus turned back to face him, his cloak burning off in a flash of white-blue lightning. No more hiding. The robes fell in tatters. He stood in full power now, skybreaker gauntlets on his arms, crackling with divine charge, Aegis scale armor wrapped around his chest, faintly glowing with pulsing gold. His eyes were storms. His breath was wind. The room bent around him. You ruled through fear, father. His hands tightened, lightning snapping in arcs from fingertip to fingertip. I'm ending that reign right here. Cronus's eyes widened, not with fear, but rage. You are nothing, he bellowed. He reached to his side, and summoned his titan sickle, the same curved weapon that had once castrated Oranos, carved from celestial ore, black and red and howling with old pain. You are a mistake. The blade swung. Zeus moved. He vanished in a blur of electricity, ether step activated, and appeared directly above Cronus, arm cocked back. Thunder shout. His voice erupted like a cannon. A soundwave exploded downward, smashing into Cronus's chest and cracking the obsidian beneath them. The impact sent waves through the entire court, columns buckled, stone split, air ripped open. Cronus stumbled, roaring, but didn't fall. He brought the sickle up with a growl and slashed horizontally, a dark red arc of pure time energy trailing behind the swing. Zeus jumped high, higher than any mortal could see. Then he brought down his fist. Smite. A bolt the size of a mountain cracked from the sky, slamming directly into Cronus's chest. The blast blew back half the throne room, vaporizing titan banners and war relics in an instant. Outside, storms gathered around the peak of Mount Othrys. Wind howled, clouds churned. The skies screamed as the sky god clashed with the king of time. Inside, Rhea moved like the storm wasn't there. She guided her 5 children through a side path, an escape route carved into the foundation of the palace centuries ago. Her hands weaved protective spells, light barriers flickering behind her. Hestia whispered weakly, "What happened?" But Rhea only said, "Your brother. He's come back for you." The siblings didn't speak, their bodies still too weak, but they felt it. Through the walls, through the ground. Zeus was fighting, and the mountain was listening. Back in the throne room, Cronus stood tall, the skin over his ribs scorched black from smite, parts of his robe reduced to ash. But his body healed, time reversed itself over his wounds in front of Zeus's eyes. "I am time itself, boy," Cronus screamed. He raised both arms, and with a flash, the entire room warped, reversing. Chunks of shattered stone flew back into place. The sickle glowed brighter. Zeus clenched his fists. "Then I'll just break you faster than you can rewind." He vanished again. Ether step reappeared behind Cronus. Stormcaller's wrath. From every corner of the sky, clouds twisted violently into a massive localized tempest. Wind slammed through the cracks of the walls, and dozens of lightning strikes, smaller, faster, began barraging Cronus like rapid divine gunfire. Cronus grunted, raising his sickle to block. Sparks and light exploded around him. He staggered again, his power fighting to keep up. He roared and swung, once, twice, ripping time open like fabric, and trying to trap Zeus in loops of frozen moments. Zeus dodged each one, flipping and twisting midair, using the energy of the storm to keep moving. Then he stopped, midair, hands out. The storm around him went quiet. Cronus squinted. "What are you?" And then Zeus brought his hands together. Lightning flicker, full chain mode. Cronus's eyes widened. Boom. One bolt struck his arm. Crack. Another hit his side. Then 3. Then 7. The final bolt came down from above and drilled Cronus into the ground, creating a massive crater at the foot of his throne. Dust. Fire. Cracked marble. The runes in the hall flickered. The Titan King had been knocked down. Zeus dropped beside him, gauntlets sparking, breath heavy but steady. "You're not a god." He looked down at Cronus, bloodied, bruised, wheezing. "You're a relic. A page I just turned." Cronus struggled, one hand clawing at the sickle. Zeus kicked it away. Then, he looked at the ceiling. He could feel it. Rhea and his siblings were clear. He looked back down. "This isn't over." Cronus growled through blood. Zeus smirked. "I know. That's the fun part." He raised his hand. Lightning spun into a spear of pure energy. But before he struck, he paused. "Not yet, not here." He turned instead, stepped into the center of the court, and looked around. "I am Zeus," he said, voice ringing like a war bell. "And the gods have returned." Then, he vanished into a flash of light. The throne room echoed with broken silence. And Cronus, on his knees, burned and humiliated, felt something he hadn't in ages. Fear. 7 comments 0 votes send gifts. War of Gods and Titans. The hidden cavern, beneath Mount Othrys. The wind howled through the mountain's throat as if trying to catch its breath after what had just happened above. Deep below the earth, far from the shattered throne room and Cronus's fury, Rhea knelt beside 5 divine bodies, each one glowing faintly, like stars trying to remember how to shine. Hestia, still and pale, flickers of golden flame dancing across her fingertips. Demeter, her breathing steady now, with fresh green vines coiling protectively around her arms. Hera, lightning pulsing behind her closed eyelids. Hades, curled inward, a cold mist forming around his chest. Poseidon, his chest rising and falling slowly, saltwater trailing from his fingers, pooling beneath him. Rhea pressed her palm to Hestia's forehead and whispered a prayer in the old tongue. Then a spark, tiny, but there. Hestia's eyes fluttered. Her lips parted. "Mother." Rhea smiled, tears slipping down her cheeks. "You're safe now." One by one, the others stirred. Demeter gasped and sat up, vines bursting from the floor around her. Hera blinked slowly, then rolled onto her side with a pained grunt. Hades winced, eyes half-lidded as black mist drifted from his fingertips. Poseidon woke last, eyes snapping open as a wave of divine energy pushed outward, rippling across the chamber like a shockwave. He sat up quickly, chest heaving. What just happened?" Rhea didn't answer right away. Her eyes turned toward the shadows at the edge of the cavern. And there, stepping forward, glowing faintly with the last echoes of the storm still clinging to him, Zeus. His armor was cracked, gauntlets scorched, a thin line of blood rolled down his jaw. But he stood tall, unshaken. "That," he said calmly, "was me kicking our father in the gut so hard he coughed all of you out." The room went quiet. They stared at him, wide-eyed, confused, instinctively wary. This stranger who radiated skyfire, power, confidence. Then Hera narrowed her eyes. "Who are you?" Zeus met her gaze without flinching. "I'm Zeus." He looked at each of them in turn. "Son of Rhea, son of Cronus, your brother." Silence. Demeter blinked. "Our brother. You were all swallowed before I was born," he said softly. "Mother hid me. I trained. I waited. I came back for you." Hades coughed. His voice was rasped and low. "Why?" Zeus looked him in the eye. "Because family doesn't belong in a stomach." Doris snorted in the background. Rhea gave her a warning glance. Hestia sat up straighter, her flames now rising gently. "You fought Cronus alone." "No," Zeus said, "I fought with everything he taught me to hate." He stepped closer. "With fire, with thunder, with every reason I had to break the cycle." Poseidon's hands clenched at his sides. "And you think one fight is enough to end him?" Zeus smiled faintly. "No, that was just the opening punch." He looked around again, at the gods slowly regaining their strength. "You all have power. You've always had it, but you were swallowed before you could become more than names." His voice dropped slightly. "That ends now." Rhea stepped forward beside him. Her hand touched Hera's cheek. My children, he brought you back. Hera stared at her mother, then at Zeus again. Her expression softened, but only a little. Prove it, she said. Zeus raised an eyebrow. Prove what? That you're worthy to lead us. Zeus shrugged. Didn't I just do that? Hades stood now, slower than the others. A cold aura spread beneath his feet, bones whispering in the shadows behind his eyes. No, he said, you started something, but leading gods, that's not just lightning and fists. Zeus turned to him. Then let's make it simple. He pointed toward the cave mouth. Out there is a king who ate his children to keep his crown. I put him on his knees. He looked back at them, all of them. I'm not asking for loyalty. Not yet. I'm asking for unity. Stand with me, and we take the throne together. As Olympians, as family. The cave trembled. Hera looked at Hestia. Hades looked at Poseidon. Demeter wiped the dirt from her cheek, vines already blooming again along her arm. And slowly, one by one, they nodded, not fully convinced, not yet bound. But ready. Poseidon stepped forward last. He grinned faintly. Fine, let's see what little brother can do. Zeus turned, facing the storm outside once more. His gauntlets glowed again, the winds responded, and with the first step back toward war, a new age began. Mount Othrys. The throne room was in ruin. Cracks ran along the marble floor like veins. The massive obsidian columns that once stood tall and proud now leaned jagged and broken. Smoke curled upward from scorched stone. The great golden banners of the Titans had been ripped and burned, now fluttering like dying flags in the windless chamber. And in the center of it all, Cronus stood. Not seated. Not calm, but boiling. The Titan King's chest rose and fell like a beast barely holding itself together. His robes hung in shreds, the fabric blackened and soaked with blood, his blood. His hands clenched at his sides, twitching with the urge to crush something, anything. His eyes, they were no longer the slow-burning eyes of a king who had ruled for ages. They were wild, burning, feral. Zeus, he whispered. The name came out like a curse. Like venom. A nearby pillar groaned. Cronus turned and ripped it in half with one hand. The whole chamber shook. Time around him warped. The very air bent unnaturally, fast, then slow, then still, like the world didn't know what to do with his rage. From the shadows, one of his Titan generals stepped forward carefully. My king, they're gone. Cronus turned, eyes blazing. I know. His voice exploded across the chamber, cracking stone, shattering the floor beneath his feet. The Titan fell to his knees, gasping for breath as the pressure crushed the air around him. Cronus stepped toward him slowly, the sickle in his hand dripping with raw time energy, flickering like a dying star. He was in this hall, Cronus growled. He looked me in the eye, and made me kneel. He gritted his teeth, divine blood dripping from the corner of his mouth. He made me bleed. The room darkened. Time itself grew heavy, dragging like chains. Paintings aged and burned away. Flowers in the corner of the room wilted and crumbled into dust. Cronus raised his hand and clenched it into a fist. The crushed remains of the silver flask floated up from the floor, trembling in the air like a guilty memory. Rhea, he muttered, hate dripping from every syllable. She hid him, fed him, raised him to be my end. His eyes lifted to the ceiling where the wind howled beyond the cracks. In Métis, that scheming Oceanid, I can smell her spellwork. He turned, facing the blackened throne. His throne. They want war, he said softly. Then I will give them annihilation. His aura exploded outward in a spiral of raw energy, turning everything near him to ash. Guards were flung across the room. Statues shattered. The mountain itself groaned beneath his feet. Cronus raised his sickle to the sky. Time around him fractured into glowing shards, echoes of battles, visions of gods screaming, futures shattering. Let the world remember why Titans ruled. Let Olympus rise. So I can personally crush it beneath my heel. And with a single step forward, the mountain trembled again. The war of gods and Titans had truly begun. 3 comments 0 votes send gifts. The call of the Titans. Mount Othrys, Hall of Echoes. The sky above the Titan mountain was no longer just stormy. It was fractured, clouds torn apart by wrath, lightning crawling across them like broken veins. The mountain groaned like something ancient and angry had been stirred beneath it. Inside the dark halls of Othrys, torches flickered back to life on their own. One by one, dim, cold. They weren't lit by flame. They were called by command. And deep in the mountain's heart, the chamber known as the Hall of Echoes, where the first Titan treaties were made and broken, awoke once more. Its round stone table, etched with names older than nations, lit from below with dull gold. The ceiling above it spun slowly, a map of the cosmos shaped by Cronus's will. Entire constellations hovered and shifted in slow arcs of light. They dimmed as he entered. Cronus. No crown, no robes, only power. The king of the Titans stepped into the center, his sickle dragging behind him, leaving a faint glowing cut in the stone. His eyes glowed like dying suns. And one by one, they appeared. The 12 Titans of elder days. 1. Hyperion, the Titan of light and sun. Broad-shouldered and stern, his skin shimmered like molten gold. His eyes were 2 miniature suns burning behind a calm face. Armor of polished obsidian wrapped his form, reflecting nothing but fire. 2. Theia, goddess of sight and brilliance. Cloaked in translucent silver robes, her eyes were lenses of endless galaxies. Light bent around her even when she didn't move. 3. Koios, Titan of intellect and the north. Thin, tall, face lined with cracks of knowledge. His voice was calm, but his thoughts whispered behind him, visible as swirling glyphs. 4. Phoebe, Titaness of prophecy and memory. She floated in, her hair made of drifting stars, her gaze always fixed on something behind the veil. She spoke only when it mattered. And she never repeated herself. 5. Creus, the forgotten pillar. Built like a war statue. Covered in chains forged by himself, by choice. His body was etched with runes that shook when he breathed. 6. Iapetus, Titan of mortality and craft. Wiry, intense, hands always twitching like they were forging invisible blades. His mouth was scarred shut, he spoke through the hammer strikes of his heart. 7. Mnemosyne, Titaness of memory. Calm, eyes like deep wells of time. Her very presence made people remember things they tried to forget. She rarely showed emotion. 8. Tethys, wife of Oceanus. Her form was fluid, robes flowing like rivers, eyes calm like the surface of a sea that could drown cities if stirred. 9. Oceanus, the old flow. He appeared last among them, seated, wrapped in robes that shimmered like the horizon line of all waters. His face was unreadable, beard flowing endlessly into water that looped back into itself. Neutral, watching. 10. Rhea, absent. 11. Themis, Titaness of divine law. Wearing a blindfold of woven starlight, her voice was always level, never raised. Her staff hovered beside her, a scale balanced in eternal sway. 12. Cronus, at the center. Not a guest, not a voice, but the judge. Around them, their children gathered too, some proud, some reluctant, some trembling. Atlas, son of Iapetus. Towering, the weight of the sky already starting to bend his back. Prometheus, quiet, lean, sharp-eyed, watching everyone, especially Cronus. Epimetheus, nervous, small next to his brother, constantly biting his thumb. Helios, golden and fierce, a solar flame humming around him like a heartbeat. Selene, graceful, with hair like moonlight and footsteps that made no sound. Eos, the dawn goddess, restless, light flickering across her fingers like flares. Astraeus, Pallas, Perses, others among them, holding their breath. Cronus stood before all of them. And he didn't shout. He didn't need to. When he spoke, the table shook. You all felt it. His voice was deep, slow, heavy. My son, Zeus, has declared war. The word war lingered like poison. Hyperion stood, arms crossed. He wounded you. Cronus's eyes narrowed. He freed his siblings. In my court, with her help. They all knew who, her, was. Theia's voice was soft. So it begins. Koios looked at Oceanus. Will you speak? Oceanus didn't answer at first. Then he opened one eye. I did not support Cronus when he overthrew Oranos. I only flowed with the tide. A pause. And I will do the same now. Cronus's jaw clenched, but he said nothing. Neutral. Tethys, beside him, bowed her head. A shared decision. Prometheus stepped forward. Perhaps this isn't rebellion. Perhaps this is renewal. Cronus turned his gaze slowly. Say that again. Prometheus didn't blink. Zeus has done what no one else could. Maybe he's not here to destroy us, but to push us forward. Forward. Cronus stepped closer. Is that what you call betrayal? Prometheus didn't move. I call it evolution. The room tensed. Atlas shifted his weight. If this becomes war, who stands with Olympus? Silence. Helios looked down. Selene vanished into moonlight, already unsure. Astraeus stepped back, and then, Themis spoke, "Some of us were born to end cycles. Others to start them." She turned her blindfolded gaze toward Cronus. "Which are you?" Cronus didn't answer. He looked across the room. Half of the old gods, silent. A few, nodding in support. But more still, hesitating. He raised his sickle, lightning-shaped and jagged. Then let them hesitate. He turned from the table. And let the rest of us prepare for war. As he walked out, the air behind him twisted. Time fractured in his wake. And across the world, gods began to choose. Mount Dicte, the wind whispered across the peak, dragging clouds across the sky like war banners waiting to be raised. The sun hadn't yet risen, but lightning danced gently behind the horizon, as if nature itself sensed what was coming. Zeus stood alone, cape billowing behind him, hair swept back by the cold mountain air. He looked up, not at the stars, not at the moon, but at the vast space between. That space now belonged to him. He had done it, freed his siblings, faced his father, started a war with gods older than time. And it was only the beginning. He exhaled through his nose, smiling faintly. "We'll talk about destiny later." His hand twitched. "Right now, let's see what the system thinks." He held out his palm. Ding! A bright golden light shimmered before him as the Olympian Codex bloomed into view. The air around it pulsed with quiet power, each line of glowing script dancing with divine weight. Quest complete. Quest: free the forgotten gods. Objective: rescue your divine siblings from the stomach of Cronus. Status: check mark complete. Rewards: title unlocked. Liberator of Olympus. Your name now echoes through divine winds. Loyalty gain with Olympians, +25%. Skill upgrade: Smite LV. 4 LV. 5 max. Final form unlocked. Sky Judgment, a concentrated bolt capable of piercing divine barriers and destabilizing titans. System perk: Divine Leadership Protocol passive. Allies within 500 meters gain +10% to divine energy output and resistance. You lead, and the storm follows. Faith increase. Local regional. New believers. Nymph clans of Thessaly, flame sprites of the Eastern Vale, hidden spirits of Delphos. Zeus raised a brow. Not bad, as he reached to close the interface. Ding! Another screen flashed open, this time rimmed with red lightning. The air around it crackled. The tone was heavier, colder. New main quest unlocked. Quest: the Titanomachi begins. Objective: defeat the 12 titans and overthrow the rule of Cronus. Requirements: rally the Olympians, 6/6 gathered. Secure divine stronghold. Gain realm recognition, 1/3. First blood drawn. Win conditions: Cronus must fall. Throne of Olympus must rise. A new age must begin. Failure condition: death or submission of all Olympians. Return of the world to Titan rule. Reward: complete system ascension. World authority access. Seat of the sky. Zeus stared at the screen, the red glow reflecting in his eyes. So it's official. He lowered his hand, the screen fading. The storm above him began to stir again. He could feel Cronus gathering power. Titans waking. War drums in the bones of the world. But he wasn't afraid. He cracked his neck, lightning trailing behind his shoulders like a cape made of stars. Titanomachi, huh? His smile sharpened. Let's make history. He turned, stepping down the mountain trail, toward his siblings, his allies, and a war that would change the heavens forever. 2 comments 0 votes send gifts. Planning. Twilight Vale. The air here always felt like a held breath. The trees stood frozen, their branches gently humming with faint starlight, and the river below flowed in reverse, up toward the clouds instead of down toward the sea. Time was different in this place. Quiet, unbothered by the outside world. Prometheus stood near the riverbank, arms crossed over his chest, his silhouette outlined by the drifting glow of constellations overhead. His cloak hung low over one shoulder, a small forged crystal embedded in his belt flickering with every breath he took. Before him stood Métis, cloaked in deep green and blue, her hair woven with symbols of water and wisdom. She looked as calm as ever, but her eyes burned like stormlight trapped behind glass. Prometheus let out a small scoff and tilted his head. "You want me to side with the son of Cronus?" He raised an eyebrow, his voice dry and sharp. "And oppose the Titan King himself?" He looked away, toward the river that flowed up. "Well, I had that in mind. Eventually." His mouth curved faintly. "Just didn't think you'd be the one asking." Métis didn't blink, she stepped closer. "Then you know why I came." He glanced at her, something flickering behind his eyes. I know why, I just want to hear you say it. Métis nodded once, slow and controlled. Her voice dropped. Because this isn't just about overthrowing Cronus. It's about rewriting the order. The old world is cracking. I saw it, you've seen it too. Prometheus didn't speak. Zeus didn't come back to start a rebellion, she said. He came to end a legacy built on fear. One you and I were born into. One we were meant to serve without question. Prometheus clenched his jaw, the crystal at his belt glowing hotter. And you believe he's the one to do it? Métis smiled faintly. He's not polished, not wise yet, but he's brave, reckless, unapologetically alive, and most of all, he's not Cronus. Prometheus chuckled softly. Low bar. She didn't laugh. He has the support of the Olympians now. Hestia, Hera, Demeter, Hades, Poseidon. They've joined him. You know what that means. Prometheus looked away again. It means the old blood is waking up. Métis continued. Styx has pledged her rivers to him. Adia has warded the caves beneath Dictys. Doris is rallying the sea spirits. Even Rhea stands behind him now, openly. That made Prometheus freeze. He turned slowly. Rhea broke silence. With her whole voice, Métis said. She watched Cronus devour her children, and now she's watching her last-born tear him off the throne. Prometheus exhaled through his nose, muttering. Old gods falling, new ones rising. Not just rising, Métis whispered. She took a step closer, her voice lower now, almost like a secret. Forging a new world, one we don't have to chain ourselves to. Prometheus looked down at his hand, burned and scarred from centuries of forging. He saw the cuffs that had long since broken. He remembered fire. He looked up. Does he even understand what he's about to start? Not fully, Métis said. But he will. That's why I came to you. A beat of silence passed. A wind rolled through the veil, carrying sparks and stardust with it. Prometheus finally turned to her completely. You have allies. You have power. You even have thunder. He raised a brow. But do you have a plan? Métis' eyes flashed. The moment Zeus strikes again, Cronus will call the Titans into formation. It'll become a war of realms, land, sea, sky, and underworld. She opened her palm, a shimmering scroll appearing in her hand. We don't just fight them head-on. We outthink them. Prometheus smirked. Now that sounds like you. She handed him the scroll. He opened it, his eyes scanned quickly, and for the first time in ages, a smile cracked across his face. You really think we can steal that from Iapetus? With you helping, she said. Yes. Prometheus rolled the scroll shut. He looked toward the sky, where the stars had begun to pulse like they were counting down. Then let's light a fire under the old world and see who burns. Métis smiled, and the river behind them shifted its current, for the first time in centuries. Mount Dictys. The chamber was quiet now, but it pulsed with something deeper, purpose. Light flickered from glowing stones overhead, casting shadows that danced across the cavern walls. Thunder rumbled softly in the distance, as if the mountain itself was holding its breath. Zeus stood at the center, one hand resting on a map carved into stone, etched by Métis herself, enchanted to shift with every change in the world's balance. The Olympians surrounded him, each one watching, listening, thinking. Hera, arms crossed, lightning still flickering softly along her fingers. Poseidon, seated against a stone pillar, water dripping steadily from his skin, pooling beneath him. Hades, leaning in the corner, eyes half-lidded, shadow curling lazily around his boots. Demeter, her hands glowing faintly green, fresh leaves sprouting at her feet. Hestia, calm, centered, a warm flame floating just above her palm. All of them, awake now. Gods again, but the air was heavy with more than just war. There's more than just Cronus, Zeus said, voice low. He looked up at them, serious now. More than just his throne. He pointed at the far corner of the map, a pit etched in black, pulsing faintly with chains and screams. Tartarus. That's where they keep them, Zeus said. The others. Gaia's children. The ones Cronus locked away. The ones that helped him win the first war and were betrayed after. Hera's eyes narrowed. The Hecatoncheires. The Cyclops. Hades spoke next, colder. Monsters, some say. Zeus turned to him. Their weapons. Forgotten, discarded, and they hate Cronus more than we ever could. Poseidon pushed off the pillar. You want to free them? Zeus nodded. They helped Cronus overthrow Ouranos. We help them now, not because we're saints. He looked at each of them. But because we need every blade we can find. Demeter stepped forward. And if they turn on us? Then we deal with it, Zeus said simply. But they deserve freedom. We all do. Hestia finally spoke, her voice soft but strong. How do we even get to Tartarus? Zeus looked back at the map. The deep black pit glowed brighter. That's where the plan starts. He looked up. We go through the old passage beneath the Temple of Shadows. It hasn't been touched since Cronus sealed it after the war. It'll lead us down the Styx and into the deeper rings. Hades raised an eyebrow. You're planning to take us through the underworld? Zeus shrugged. You're the expert. Hades gave a dry chuckle. Fair. Hera sighed. We're really doing this? Zeus nodded. Yeah. He clenched his fist. Cronus took everything from us. Now we take back what he buried. And bring it to the surface. Later, at the mouth of the Temple of Shadows, the Olympians stood before a towering, half-buried ruin wrapped in dead vines and silence. The entrance was sealed with chains, old magic, and forgotten curses. Zeus stepped forward. He raised his hand. Lightning crawled across the seal. Let's wake the rest of the world. With a crash of thunder, the gate cracked open. Let them scream for war. The mouth of the deep, entrance to Tartarus. The wind around the chasm didn't blow. It pulled. Like something at the bottom of the world was hungry and tired of waiting. The sky above had lost its color. No clouds, no sun, just a faded gray dome stretched endlessly over them. The kind of stillness that made your bones want to run before your mind caught up. The only sound was that low, unnatural hum. Deep, endless. It buzzed in the chest like a warning whispered from the bones of the earth. Zeus stood at the very edge of the abyss, boots planted on fractured stone that cracked and groaned with every gust of pressureless air. His cloak whipped behind him. His silver-white hair snapped with stray currents of divine static. He didn't move. He didn't blink. Behind him, the others gathered. Hades was already by his side, shrouded in mist that curled around his body like living shadows. His eyes were unreadable, but his stance was calm. Confident. You say that like it's a problem, he said softly, responding to Zeus's words. Poseidon cracked his knuckles. Let's just hope whatever's inside isn't too ugly, he muttered, forcing a grin. Hera rolled her eyes. Speak for yourself. Some of Gaia's kids in there are the reason nightmares were invented. Even Father wouldn't walk in there unless he had no choice. Demeter stood near Hestia, fingers coiled in green vines that looped around her forearms like protective serpents. She looked pale. We need them, she whispered. If we're going to stand a chance in this war, we need their strength. Hestia nodded once, small flames hovering above her palm. The fire didn't flicker like usual, it trembled, as if it, too, understood where they were going. Métis appeared beside them, stepping lightly across the stone ledge like she didn't feel the weight in the air. Her oceanid cloak fluttered around her ankles, and her eyes, always sharp, never stopped scanning. This won't be like walking into a fortress, she said, her voice cool and clear. Tartarus is not just a prison. It's a place, a being. It will react to you. Try to trick you. Feed on your thoughts. If you don't focus, you will lose yourself. And yet we go anyway, said Hera. Because no one else will, Zeus replied. A ripple echoed through the windless air. They turned as Styx approached, her presence unmistakable. The river goddess wore black, her hair bound behind her in tight braids like coiled ropes. Her armor wasn't metal, it was something older. Something woven from the veil between life and death. You're all insane, she said. And brave, but mostly insane. Is that your way of saying you're in? Asked Zeus. I already said I'd guide you to the entrance of the underworld. Tartarus is just, lower than that. Much lower, she smirked. I'll show you the way. But you'll be walking the rest. Zeus turned back toward the chasm. His voice rang out, low and serious. If you feel fear, feel it. But don't let it lead. The others said nothing. He stepped forward, and fell. No sound, just a straight drop into black. Hades followed, coat billowing. Poseidon next, diving like he was leaping into the sea. Hera, calm-faced but jaw-tight. Demeter hesitated, but only for a breath, and then stepped after them. Hestia whispered a blessing and dropped, flame trailing in her wake. Métis nodded to Styx once. Don't let them get lost in the dark. Styx smirked. I'm the river of oaths. I don't do lost. They stepped in together, and the void swallowed them whole. Descent into Tartarus. At first, there was nothing. Just windless falling. Then, colors. Not normal ones. Shifting lights, like memories bleeding across your eyes. Screams in the wind. Laughter that wasn't human. A heartbeat beneath them, impossibly large, pounding like a war drum. Then the walls appeared, vast towers of stone and root, spiraling down like the inside of a throat. The descent slowed. They weren't falling anymore. They were being dragged. Their bodies landed softly, but not gently. Tartarus didn't believe in grace. The stone floor beneath their feet pulsed. Like skin. Zeus stood first, lightning flickering at his fingertips. The others followed, adjusting to the oppressive weight of the place. It wasn't just dark, it was thick. Alive. Welcome to Tartarus, Styx said, stepping forward. Where the land hates you, and the air would eat your lungs if it could. Métis narrowed her eyes. We should move. The longer we linger, the more the realm will push back. Zeus nodded. The path ahead was long. Twisting. Chains hung from the air. Floating stones held cursed runes. Whispers crawled along the walls, some sounded like their own voices. No guards, no creatures yet, but something was watching. You said Cronus used the Hecatoncheires and the Cyclops, Hera said. But why not kill them? Because even Cronus feared what they were, Hades answered. Their death might bring something worse. Something louder. Zeus looked back at his siblings. We free them. He turned toward the deepest part of the tunnel. And then we remind the world that the Titans aren't the only things that can rule the sky. They pressed forward into the deep, where even gods hesitate to breathe. And Tartarus watched, because gods were coming to wake the monsters. Mount Othrys. The throne room was dead silent. The wind outside had stopped. The world outside had stopped. Only the slow, rhythmic sound of breathing filled the obsidian hall. Heavy, controlled, barely. Cronus sat unmoving, draped in a black and gold robe stained from his last outburst. The jagged sickle of time leaned against the base of his throne. His eyes glowed faintly, two burning coals in a cracked mountain. The room was dim, lit only by dying torches and the flicker of crumbling runes on the stone walls. The Titan King sat, thinking. No, calculating. His face was stone, but his fingers twitched, his jaw flexed. A man, a god, a thing older than memory, and right now, he was drowning in fury. Until the doors creaked, not open, they peeled apart. And from the shadows beyond the black pillars came a figure cloaked in death mist, gliding across the floor like a spirit torn from the river Lethe. A soul watcher, one of the dead's whisper keepers. From below, he dropped to a single knee before the throne and bowed his head low. My king, the whisper came. Forgive the intrusion, but the silence of the underworld has been broken. Cronus didn't blink. Speak. There are trespassers in Tartarus. The room chilled. Cronus tilted his head slightly, the motion slow. Purposeful. Who? The whisper keeper raised his head just enough to speak again. The children. The ones you swallowed. The ones you lost. A long silence stretched like a blade across the floor. Cronus's grip curled around the arm of his throne. It cracked under his fingers. Zeus. The name was poison. A scar. A mistake. A prophecy. He stood. The room shifted around him, the very stones groaning beneath the pressure of rising wrath. You're telling me my blood walks the depths of Tartarus? That they now wander the same pit their grandfather sealed shut? The soul watcher nodded, his body trembling. They go to awaken the Hecatoncheires, and the Cyclops. The sons of Gaia, the forgotten ones. A loud crack echoed as Cronus's foot slammed down onto the steps before his throne. Then let them wake the beasts, he spat. Let them rip the seals open, and tear the gates from their hinges. His voice dropped lower, darker, sharper than steel. Because when they crawl back into the light, I'll be waiting. He turned his burning eyes toward the open air, his gaze rising toward the ceiling like it could pierce through the clouds and see every movement in the land. Let them build their army. Let them scream for war. His hand lifted. The sickle snapped to it, drawn by pure will. The moment it touched his palm, the light in the room twisted. Time shook. Cronus narrowed his eyes. I am not afraid of storms. He turned to the shadows behind the throne and raised his voice. Call Hyperion. Bring Koios. Summon Creus and Iapetus. Wake Thea, Phoebe, and Rhea's sister, Mnemosyne. And if Oceanus still dares to call himself neutral, then let him watch while the world drowns. He strode forward, each step shaking the chamber. And bring me my armor. The war begins now. 3 comments 0 votes send gifts. Freeing the forsaken children of the earth. The depths of Tartarus, far below the mortal world. The path narrowed, twisted rock arched overhead like broken ribs, and the floor pulsed with a slow rhythm, like a sleeping thing breathing beneath the stone. There were no stars, no horizon, just shifting shadows and distant echoes that didn't match the steps they made. Zeus walked in front, a faint crackle of lightning dancing between his fingertips. Not enough to light the path, just enough to keep the dark from crawling into his head. Behind him, his siblings followed in silence. Hades moved like he belonged here. The shadows didn't cling to him, they made space for him. His eyes scanned every wall, every corner. Poseidon grumbled softly, the air around him dampening, droplets of seawater trailing from his skin like a warning. This place smells like the end of the world. No, Hera said, watching a shape twitch in the distance. It smells like what the world left behind. Demeter walked slowly, hand brushing the walls, green vines trying to grow from her touch, but they withered just as fast. It hates life here. And yet it holds it, Hestia said, her flame hovering low in her palm, a flickering heartbeat. Even in this place. Métis walked behind them, her cloak drawn tightly around her, voice low. We're close. The chains are older here. You'll feel it. Then, they heard it. Not a roar, not a scream, but a breath. A single, massive exhale from far below. The walls trembled slightly. Dust fell from unseen cracks above. Zeus stopped. That's not Tartarus reacting. Métis nodded. That's them. The Hecatoncheires are stirring. Styx stepped forward, her black eyes steady. They've been asleep for so long, their dreams are loud. A new path opened, sloped downward and lined with cracked pillars that stretched impossibly high, carved with names in a language that burned if you tried to read them. Zeus led the way. The deeper they went, the more the air changed. Time slowed, not because of magic, but because Tartarus wanted it to. It pulled at their thoughts, made memories stretch. Poseidon suddenly stumbled, clutching his head. I just saw myself, as a child, in Cronus's hand. Why? It's showing you things to weaken you, Hades said, helping him up. Ignore it, remember why we're here. A moment later, Hera paused, eyes distant. Then she blinked sharply. It tried to make me forget Zeus. He turned back toward her. Couldn't if you tried. She smirked faintly. Don't flatter yourself, baby brother. Further in now, the path opened. And there, chained to pillars of obsidian taller than mountains, were the Hecatoncheires. 3 of them, each one larger than a fortress. Bodies shaped like men, but with 50 arms sprawled and nailed across the black stone. Faces that looked like war had sculpted them. Eyes closed, chests slowly rising. They didn't look dead, they looked waiting. Chains thicker than trees bound them. The metal glowed faintly with divine inscriptions, oath seals, curse runes, fading, but not yet broken. They're still bound, Métis whispered. Even in sleep, they're kept in place by Titan blood magic. And the Cyclops? Hestia asked. They're deeper, Styx said. Held in stone prisons, muffled so their cries don't reach the surface. Zeus stepped forward. The chains hissed at his presence. One of the Hecatoncheires twitched. Zeus raised his voice. I'm Zeus, son of Cronus, but not his ally. No response. I've come to free you. Stillness. Then, a voice. It came from everywhere and nowhere at once. Deep, rumbling, tired. Another son of the sky, come to use us. Zeus clenched his fists. No, I came to fight the ones who put you here. The chains trembled. Another voice, different tone, a whisper behind thunder. Cronus promised freedom, then locked us deeper. Zeus stepped forward, his aura flared, thunder cracked in the stillness. I'm not him, I'm not Uranus, I'm not Cronus, I came to end them, and I want you to stand with me. Slowly, one eye opened. Golden, massive, staring directly into Zeus's soul. You would free monsters. No, Zeus said, I would free brothers. Silence. Then the chains shook, violently. Poseidon stepped back. Is that good or bad? Métis' eyes narrowed. It's working. The runes began to crack. The old seals pulsed red, then blue, then burned to ash in the air. One of the arms moved. Then another. The scream that followed wasn't pain, it was release. The cavern split. The Hecatoncheires moved for the first time in ages, shaking the whole of Tartarus. And yet, behind them, a new vibration, a growl. Something else had woken up. Zeus turned. The Cyclops. They're near, Hades said. I feel them, like forges gone cold. They ran, down twisted tunnels where heat rose from cracks, where iron still glowed faintly on anvils untouched for centuries. There they were, 3 Cyclops, massive, muscled, one eye each, trapped behind glowing walls of locked stone. Beards of soot, hands too big for their prisons. Zeus reached out. The one in the center opened his eye and spoke in a rough voice. You're not Cronus. No. Are you here to kill us? No. Then who are you? Zeus smiled. Your future. He punched the stone barrier. Nothing. Then Poseidon stepped up and grinned. Let me try. He summoned a vortex of condensed water pressure, firing it like a cannon. The stone cracked. Hera followed, forming a blast of divine light that shattered the upper seal. Demeter threw vines laced with divine ether. Hestia's fire melted the lock core. Zeus stepped forward, divine lightning building around him. He summoned all the divine charge in his body, and slammed his fist against the final seal. Boom! The stone exploded outward. The Cyclops roared. And were free. The others followed, all three standing tall, stretching like titans of flame and metal. Who are you? One asked. Zeus. The tallest Cyclops grinned, eye gleaming like molten silver. Then we owe you weapons. Zeus grinned. We'll take them. The group turned. Behind them, the freed Hecatoncheires were already moving, arms flexing, voices rising in low, shaking war songs. Zeus looked at his siblings. We go now. To the surface. Poseidon cracked his neck. About time. Hera smirked. Let's see how father likes his old enemies coming home. They walked toward the way back. Tartarus didn't try to stop them. It watched. Because gods were walking out with monsters behind them. And the storm was only just beginning. 2 comments 0 votes send gifts. Brothers clash. Dark clouds swirled over the ruined hills at the edge of the world, where stone cracked under the weight of forgotten battles. The entrance to the underworld stood like a wound in the land, wide, jagged, and humming with a deathless silence. Atlas stood at its mouth. Massive, unmoving. His armor was forged from the crust of the earth, runes etched into the plates pulsing faintly with ancient might. The air around him shimmered, not with heat, but with pressure. The weight he carried wasn't just physical, it was cosmic. The burden of holding up the sky had shaped him into something terrifying. He raised one hand, fingers outstretched toward his soldiers, Titan enforcers armored in volcanic iron and wielding spears of crystallized time. Cover all exits, Atlas growled, his voice like tectonic plates grinding. When those bastards crawl out, you end them immediately. The ground trembled under his boots. The Titans fanned out, taking positions. Eyes glowing, blades ready. Silence. Then, a soft laugh from behind the broken pillars near the slope. Atlas turned his head slowly. 2 figures stepped into the dying light. Prometheus walked calmly, arms folded. His hair was short and dark, his expression cool, almost amused. His cloak billowed lazily in the wind, but the flame in his eyes was far from lazy. Beside him, Epimetheus strolled forward with a lazy smirk and a crooked blade across his shoulder. A little shorter than his brother, messier, but with the same glint of danger under his grin. Well, isn't this dramatic? Prometheus said, surveying the scene. Soldiers stationed like statues, the gate surrounded. You waiting for ghosts or something? Atlas narrowed his eyes. Prometheus. Traitor. I prefer, visionary. Prometheus shrugged. And Epimetheus, Atlas sneered, I thought you'd be too stupid to pick a side. Epimetheus snorted. Funny, I was gonna say the same about you. Atlas took a step forward, and the stone beneath cracked. I won't warn you again. Move aside or be crushed. Prometheus's eyes lit up, soft flames dancing across his fingertips. Crushed. No. Tested. Definitely. In one swift motion, Atlas hurled his hand forward, sending a shockwave through the air like a thunderclap. The battle began. The fight. Atlas lunged forward like a mountain given motion, fist cocked, eyes blazing. His knuckles glowed with spatial gravity, the same force he once used to bear the heavens. One hit, and the earth itself buckled. Prometheus slid backward, trails of fire lighting beneath his boots as he moved. He raised both arms, summoning twin circles of blazing energy that caught Atlas's strike midair, heat and force clashing like twin storms. Epimetheus was already in motion. He darted between Titan soldiers like a streak of chaos, blade swinging low. With a yell, he flipped over a spear thrust and slashed downward, cutting through a soldier's knee joint, toppling the giant with a howl. You guys got slower since the last century. Epimetheus laughed, dodging another swing. Or maybe I got cooler. A blast of golden flame erupted behind him, Prometheus, with a hand pointed straight at the ground. Pillars of flame burst upward, throwing 3 Titan guards into the air. Focus, EPI. Prometheus shouted. I am focused. Epimetheus called back. ducking a massive hammer and stabbing upward into a titan's ribs. Focused on ruining their day, Atlas roared and slammed both fists into the ground. A shockwave exploded outward, stone shattered, wind howled, the battlefield shook like it wanted to break apart. Both brothers were sent flying, but Prometheus twisted in midair, landing in a crouch, sliding across molten cracks. He raised his hand. A blazing spear of flame appeared. Prometheus hurled it at Atlas. Atlas raised a stone wall, the spear collided and burst into a dome of fire. The flash lit up the entire field, casting giant shadows that danced like angry spirits. But Atlas didn't wait. He leapt through the flames, right fist cocked back, glowing with the gravitational pull of the stars. Prometheus met him midair. Boom! A shockwave tore through the sky. The clouds above were shredded in an instant, revealing a hole of blinding light. Atlas and Prometheus were locked, punch against punch, flame against force. Prometheus gritted his teeth. You think just because you are strong you understand the weight of consequence. Atlas growled. You think fire makes you a god. With a roar, he slammed Prometheus into the mountain wall. The cliff cracked. Prometheus coughed blood, but he smiled. I'm not done yet. Flames surged from his body in all directions. The wall behind him exploded. Prometheus flew out of the smoke with a trail of living fire wrapping around his body, an aura of pure invention, raw and relentless. Below, Epimetheus had stolen a titan's own hammer and was using it to send his enemies flying like broken toys. He smashed one soldier across the chest, then spun around to crush another's shoulder with a shout. The hammer vibrated with chaotic energy, it fed on unpredictability, just like him. You okay up there, bro? He shouted mid-swing. Prometheus twisted mid-flight, caught Atlas's wrist, and flipped over him in one clean arc, landing behind with a blast of heat. Working on it, Atlas turned to strike again, but something shifted. Prometheus's flames flickered blue. The fire condensed. Focused. He raised both hands. Solar Forge. Eternal Spark. A beam of condensed flame burst out from his palms, straight into Atlas's chest. The force sent the titan crashing backward into the hill, dust and debris flying. But even then, Atlas rose. Bruised. Burned. Still raging. You can't stop me, he snarled. I am the bearer of the sky. Epimetheus flipped down beside his brother. He smirked. Prometheus raised a brow. Ready, always. They both charged. Prometheus let out a battle cry, flames roaring behind him. Epimetheus grinned wildly, blade dancing with red sparks. Atlas met them head-on. The clash lit the whole battlefield in red and gold. Sparks flew. Stone melted. Roars echoed like thunder. The two brothers moved like lightning, fire, and madness combined, one a calculated storm, the other pure chaos with a blade. Titan soldiers tried to intervene, but were overwhelmed. Epimetheus kicked one into a crater with a laugh. Prometheus incinerated two more with a flick of his wrist. And then, both together. Prometheus shouted, twin spark. Epimetheus roared, wild bolt. Their combined attack, spiraling flame and chaotic lightning, crashed into Atlas and threw him backward with a thunderous crash. The ground cracked under his weight. Smoke covered the sky. Silence. The battlefield lay broken. Atlas didn't rise. His soldiers, seeing their commander defeated, began to retreat. Prometheus and Epimetheus stood back to back, catching their breath. Prometheus wiped sweat from his brow. We did it. Epimetheus grinned. That was awesome. Then, he winced. Also, I think I broke my shoulder. Prometheus chuckled. Told you not to steal hammers. The wind changed. The entrance to the underworld pulsed again. Something was coming. Something divine. They turned, ready to greet their allies. 2 comments 0 votes send gifts. The World Forge. The winds howled across the rocky slopes, but not with menace. With momentum, Zeus stepped out from the mouth of the underworld, his cloak fluttering behind him like a torn banner of rebellion. Sparks of lightning still clung to his shoulders, echoing the fight that had just taken place deep in Tartarus. Behind him, his siblings emerged one by one, Hades, Poseidon, Hera, Demeter, Hestia, each carrying the weight of survival and purpose. And what they saw before them made them stop. The ground was scorched. Titan soldiers lay unconscious or groaning in the dirt. Craters smoked. Rubble steamed. And at the center of the destruction, Atlas, laid out flat, face first in a ditch, massive arms chained with glowing binds of divine energy. Standing over him were Prometheus and Epimetheus, both bruised, scorched, and completely unfazed. Prometheus looked up, tossing a nod toward Zeus. You took your sweet time. Epimetheus waved. Miss anything? Zeus couldn't help but chuckle. No, you handled it. Poseidon whistled as he stepped over a cracked helmet. Looks like you two threw a party and didn't invite us. Next time, bring drinks, Epimetheus replied with a wink. Zeus walked over to Atlas's massive form and stared down at the titan who once held the sky on his back. Tie him tighter. I want him to wake up knowing who took him down. Prometheus nodded, extending his palm. The chains pulsed brighter, wrapping tighter with fire rod locks. Epimetheus kicked the base of the chains for extra measure. With a flash of golden light, the two brothers vanished, taking Atlas to a special prison at Mount Dicte, the gods' growing base of operations. The others stood in silence for a moment. Hera crossed her arms. One by one, they'll fall. Zeus stared at the horizon, his smile fading. Not yet, he said. One has yet to fall. Mount Othrys. The air was wrong. Even the shadows avoided the Titan throne room. The ceiling seemed lower. The walls pulsed with unease. And at the center of it all, Cronus sat frozen. Still, seething. A Titan general knelt before him, forehead pressed to the cracked obsidian floor. His voice trembled. My king, Atlas has been captured. Silence. The words echoed like curses. Cronus didn't blink. The general swallowed and continued. He was overpowered at the entrance of the underworld. Prometheus and Epimetheus fought him, and won. Still silence. Then, crack. The armrest beneath Cronus's grip split in half. His fingers clenched until the throne itself moaned in pain. Divine energy spilled from his body in waves, distorting the space around him. The stone at his feet began to melt. I forged him in storms, Cronus muttered, eyes twitching. I raised him to carry the sky. And you tell me, he was captured. The general dared not move. Cronus stood slowly, every motion sending tremors through the chamber. His cloak dragged behind him like night itself. The air thickened with raw time magic, blades of light slicing through the dust as if the room couldn't decide which moment it belonged to. Zeus, he whispered. Then, louder, Zeus. His voice split the hall like thunder cracking the world. Columns shattered, statues crumbled, a gust of ancient wind tore through the chamber, ripping through banners and peeling stone from the walls. He dares take my son. Cronus hissed, eyes glowing brighter now. He dares free the monsters of Tartarus. He thinks the world will bow to a child born in a cave. He stepped forward, and with each step, time warped around him. One footstep, flowers bloomed and died in seconds. Another, iron rusted, rebuilt itself, and collapsed again. He clenched his hand, summoning his sickle, its edge dripping with liquid time. Visions of broken futures flickered behind him, Olympus in flames, gods on their knees. I will end him, Cronus snarled. Not just his body, but his name, his echo. He turned to the other titans gathered behind him, Hyperion, Iapetus, Koios, Creus, and the younger titanic children of destruction. My kin, Cronus said darkly. They want war. He raised the sickle. Then let them drown in it. With a single sweep of his blade, the air tore apart, revealing a rift in the sky itself. A swirling portal opened, leading to a gathering storm unlike anything the world had ever seen. Summon the full host. Let Oceanus hide. Let Themis watch from her seat. I will crush them all. And through that portal, the Titan King marched. Not like a ruler. Like a cataclysm, because the age of waiting was over. And now, the true titanomachy had begun. The mountain forge, deep beneath Mount Dicte. The cave was hot, not just from heat, but power. The kind that hummed in the walls and rumbled underfoot like a sleeping giant. Magma veins glowed across the obsidian stone, casting a dim orange light across the chamber. 3 towering figures stood before Zeus. Their eyes burned like furnace coals, their arms thick with muscle and soot. Each one had only a single eye, glowing bright and wide in the middle of their foreheads. The Cyclops, Brontes, Steropus, Argas, gods of forge and fury. Zeus stood before them, arms folded behind his back, expression steady. I want you to forge weapons. For me, for my siblings. His voice was clear, calm, no hesitation. My father and the titans on his side won't wait for us to gather strength. They'll attack. We can't be caught off guard. Brontes, the largest of the 3, stepped forward. His chest was scarred, his hammer slung across his back like a mountain. You freed us, he rumbled, from darkness, from chains. That debt is not small. Steropus grunted, gripping the handle of his forge hammer tighter. We will craft your weapons, child of storm. Not for payment, for war. Argus tilted his head, his voice softer but sharper. But we will need what was taken from us. The ancient forges, the old tools, the sacred fire. Zeus smirked. That won't be a problem. He turned, lightning crackling faintly at his heels as he walked. The Cyclops followed, the ground trembling under their steps. Mount Dicte, the hidden heart. Zeus led them through a winding path carved from silverstone and volcanic glass. The deeper they went, the thicker the air became, warmer, charged. Finally, the tunnel widened, and they stepped into a massive underground chamber. It wasn't natural, it pulsed. Massive gearworks spun slowly in the walls, powered by streams of glowing magma. Anvils floated above molten rivers. Chains hung from the ceiling like iron vines. Crystal pillars rose from the ground, humming with divine resonance. This wasn't a forge, it was a forgotten god's workshop. Argus gasped. This is... Brontes' voice cut in, low and full of awe. The World Forge. Steropus knelt, running a thick finger along one of the etched anvils. Symbols danced to life beneath his touch. No titan could enter here, he muttered. This place rejects them, it's older than them, maybe older than gods. Zeus walked into the center of the forge, then turned around, cloak flicking like a thundercloud behind him. I found this place when I was training. I didn't know what it was at first. The Cyclops looked at each other. Brontes grinned, baring jagged teeth. Then let's wake it up. 2 comments 0 votes send gifts. Divine weapons. The forge awakened like an ancient beast breathing for the first time in eons. Pillars of obsidian split open with a roar as molten streams flowed freely across the floor, spiraling into complex runic channels. The chains hanging from above began to sway, not from wind, but from the thrum of divine energy pulsing through the chamber. Gears turned slowly, grinding with weight, their echoes like thunder in a storm cave. Brontes, Steropus, and Argus stood at the center, each of them now shirtless, revealing torsos marked by burn scars, hammer strikes, and veins that pulsed with light instead of blood. Brontes stepped forward, dragging a massive block of celestial iron across the floor. It was star iron, harvested from a fallen comet, said to be the bone of the cosmos itself. He slammed it onto the center anvil. Steropus swung his hammer once. A single hit cracked the block into 5 shards, one for each of the Olympian gods. Each shard screamed as it split, releasing a burst of energy that shook the chamber. Argus brought forth the sacred fire, an ember stolen from the first flame that birthed the stars. It hovered in his palm, then flared violently as he tossed it into the forge pit. The flames rose like a phoenix, golden and alive, crackling with power. We begin with the blade of the sky, Brontes said, his voice like rock tearing through cloud. High voltage Zeus's weapon, Keraunos, the storm-forged blade. From the first shard, Steropus forged a long, jagged blade. It wasn't just metal, it was shaped from frozen lightning, the edges still crackling with raw storm energy. As Steropus hammered it, thunder boomed with every strike. The blade pulsed in sync with his heartbeat. Argus poured molten electrum into the hilt, carving runes with a whisper that guided the storm spirits into the weapon. Brontes breathed into the weapon, imbuing it with the will of the skies. The finished product. A godblade that shimmered with bolts running through its veins. Keraunos, the weapon of Zeus, could call storms with a whisper and split mountains with a single arc of lightning. Wave Poseidon's weapon, Trina, the Ti-de-Piercer trident. The second shard was cooled in a basin of divine sea water collected from Oceanus's outer rim. Steropus forged the 3-pronged trident head with gentle, precise strikes, shaping each tine to hold and release pressure like tidal waves. Each hammer blow sang like a crashing wave. Brontes molded the shaft from coral diamond, a fusion of deep-sea minerals that shimmered blue-green. Argus bound it with sea souls, essences of creatures long extinct, giving it intelligence and instinct. Trina could part oceans, create tsunamis, and command every drop of water as if it were an extension of Poseidon's hand. Fire Hestia's weapon, Pyralithos, the eternal flame core. The third shard was forged not into a weapon of war, but a core, a living ember. Steropus shaped it into a floating orb encased in transparent flame stone, ever burning yet gentle. It hovered above the forge, pulsing with warmth. Argus whispered the first hearth prayer into it, a forgotten incantation that made fire protective and nurturing. Brontes added a piece of his own heart flame, causing the core to glow brighter than a sunstone. Pyralithos would allow Hestia to summon purifying fire, heal with warmth, and ignite hope in the darkest places. A sacred weapon of peace that could turn infernal when needed. Rice plant Demeter's weapon, Gaios, the life seed scythe. The fourth shard was forged from a rare metal called chloridium, a living alloy that grew vines when fed sunlight. Steropus shaped it into a long, curved blade resembling a crescent moon. He let vines coil naturally into the hilt. Brontes fed the blade soil from Gaia's womb, smuggled from the far corners of the world. Argus bound it with the spirit of a fallen seasonal spirit, a being that embodied spring and autumn both. Gaios could birth forests in seconds, cause plagues with a swipe, or entangle legions in thorns thicker than iron. It was both creation and decay. Snake Hera's weapon, Nemeia, the Wrathfang spear. The final shard screamed when touched. It was volatile, unstable, wild. Steropus grinned. He beat the shard into the shape of a long, slender spear, more ceremonial than practical, until it ignited with white flame. Brontes forged a spearhead from serpentbone, one of the last Hydra fangs, coated in divine poison. Argus added a ring of blood-forged steel around the shaft, a conductor of will and rage. Nemea fed on pride, blossomed in fury, and answered only to Hera's command. The spear could pierce divinity and corrupt loyalty in those it wounded. The weapons were laid in a circle. In the center, Argus chanted in the old tongue, awakening the souls within each weapon. Each one rose, hovering slightly, glowing with their own light. Brontes slammed his hammer down once. Steropus followed. Argus joined last. 3 strikes, reverberating through the world forge like the heartbeat of creation. The forge went silent. Then the weapons slowly descended, each one sliding into its own celestial sheath. They were ready. Inside the newly built summit hall, massive, circular, carved straight into the upper ribs of Mount Dicte, 6 gods stood in a half-circle, their faces lit by the glow of magma-lined walls. Zeus, Poseidon, Hades, Hera, Demeter, Hestia, each of them scarred from battles, changed from Tartarus. Each of them silent now. At the far end of the hall, the Cyclops entered. Brontes, Steropus, Argus, they carried nothing in their hands, yet thunder echoed behind every step. The weapons moved on their own, floating behind them, cloaked in shrouds of lightning, water vapor, flame, poison mist, and pulsing vines. Brontes stepped forward and banged his war hammer once into the marble floor. The sound cracked across the mountain. "The weapons are done," he said. "Born from the world forge. Awakened with your names. They are not gifts." He looked at each god. "They are burdens." The Cyclops moved aside. One by one, the weapons floated to their destined owners. Zeus looked at his lightning bolt that was his weapon and smirked as he grabbed it. Ding. 5 comments 0 votes send gifts. War start. The moment Zeus's fingers wrapped around the hilt of the Stormblade. Ding. The world froze. No sound. No movement. Just static hanging in the air. A faint pulse echoed in his skull, low, clean, and familiar. Before his eyes, flickering like lightning caught in glass, a translucent screen appeared. Divine weapon acquired. Filled right pointing small triangle name, Keraunos. Filled right pointing small triangle type, Godblade, one-handed. Filled right pointing small triangle rank, Infinity primordial tier. Filled right pointing small triangle bound to, Zeus. Filled right pointing small triangle attributes. Channeler of true storms. Soul-linked conduit. Skybreaker class weapon. Conducts divine mana plus atmospheric energy. Ignores conventional durability. Bonds with wielder's emotion. Grows with the user. Passive effect. Lightning surrounds the user, increasing reaction time and speed by plus 300% during combat. Special skill. Heaven Splitter, call forth a continental bolt of lightning. Instant. Cooldown. 3 days. Special skill. Thunder Echo, redirect all physical projectiles using magnetic arcs. Passive. Special skill. Skylords will temporarily seize control of the sky. Weather becomes a weapon. Duration. 10 minutes. Would you like to designate this as your main weapon? Filled right pointing small triangle, yes. Filled right pointing small triangle, no. This action is irreversible until the next divine awakening phase. Zeus blinked slowly. He looked down at the blade. It hummed, like it knew. He glanced sideways. His siblings were still there, watching, unaware. Their weapons hovered in front of them, and the Cyclops had stepped back. The system pulsed again, waiting. Zeus gave the faintest smirk. "You're damn right." He focused on the screen. "Yes. Kuranos has been equipped as main weapon. Weapon slot 1 locked. Storm authority has increased. New path. Storm Monarch tier, activated. All sky-type skills boosted by 40%. The screen vanished in a blink, like mist breaking under sunlight. The forge rumbled faintly beneath his feet, as if acknowledging his decision. Zeus raised Kuranos, letting its blade catch the firelight. The lightning arced once, clean, smooth, radiant. It coiled around his arm like a serpent of light. Poseidon raised a brow, feeling dramatic today. Zeus tilted the blade just enough for sparks to flick against the ground. Feels like it missed me. He turned and faced the others. Let's get to work. Mount Othrys, at the edge of the storm. The sky boiled above like a sea of black fire. Thunder cracked, not from Zeus, but from the sheer pressure of war building on the peaks of Mount Othrys. Lightning arced across the clouds, but it didn't fall. It circled, it watched. Cronus stood at the front of the gathered titans. Hyperion, Koios, Creus, Iapetus, Clemen, Perses, Astraeus, the younger ones too, brutal, hungry, half-wrapped in armor and chaos. They lined the mountain edge in tight rows, weapons gripped, eyes sharp, their breath rising like steam. Behind them, the titan host stretched for miles. Legion upon legion, creatures older than myths, beasts forged in stars and storms. Cronus wore no helmet, no armor, just his cloak, black, shredded at the edges, and the sickle in his hand. The same one that cut the sky. The same one that felled Uranus. Its blade glinted with time itself, dripping slow, golden light that reversed everything it touched. Grass grew and died beneath it. Rocks cracked and healed. The air warped. He stepped forward. No wind dared move. The world listened. You've seen it, he said, voice deep, cold. The world shifting, the cracks forming, a new name whispered like a disease through the stars, Zeus. His eyes burned, no metaphor, burned. My son, my mistake. He thinks because he crawled out of a cave, freed a few beasts, and lifted a blade, he can challenge the throne of the titans. Cronus paced slowly, sickle dragging against stone, leaving no scratch, only age. The stone aged where it touched, turning to ash. He calls gods to his side, children, infants who've barely lived a century. They cheer like they've already won. But we are the ones who shaped this world. We are the ones who bled to tame the stars. They stand on our bones. On our laws. He stopped, looked across them all. This is not a battle. It is not a rebellion. This is a correction. He lifted the sickle high. Storm clouds recoiled. The sky twisted, howling like something had been wounded just by the sight of the weapon. When they come, Cronus said, let them come with blades, with names, with pride. We will bury it all. His voice sharpened, words cracking like stone. Let them know the age of titans never ended. It only paused. The ground shook, not from Cronus, from the legions, from the fury behind their chests. A sound like a god waking. He pointed the sickle toward the horizon, toward Mount Dicte, toward the new gods who dared rise. March, take back the sky, the titans roared. And the war began. Mount Dicte, the summit ridge. Moments before the war, screech, wings sliced the wind as a massive black bird descended from the clouds, landing with a thud at Zeus's feet. Its feathers shimmered with storm light, and its eyes glowed with flashes of lightning. It gave a single call. Low, grim, Zeus stood at the front, his cloak torn at the edges, boots planted deep into the stone. Behind him, the gods stood ready. Hades, Poseidon, Hera, Demeter, Hestia, and the army they'd gathered, nymphs, giants, spirits of wind and flame. And the Chorits, the ancient warriors, the guardians who danced and clashed blades to mask his infant cries from Cronus. The ones who trained him with no pity and no mercy. They now stood silent, armored in celestial bronze, their weapons resting across their shoulders, waiting for the command. Zeus looked to the horizon. The sky itself was darkening, no longer storm clouds, but something worse. The titans were marching. Thunder cracked in the distance like a heartbeat made of war. Zeus slowly stepped forward, then turned. His eyes scanned his siblings, his allies, his protectors. Then, he spoke. They're coming. His voice wasn't loud, but it didn't need to be. Every god, every soldier, every flame that danced in the wind listened. The ones who ruled before us. The ones who call us mistakes. Children, nothing. The wind picked up. His hair sparked with flickers of lightning. His grip on Kuranos tightened. Cronus thinks the world belongs to him because he ripped it from his father. Now he wants to rip it from us. He paused, looked over his shoulder toward the direction of the coming storm. Let him try. He faced them again, his brothers, his sisters, his people. He ruled with fear, with silence. We were born in that silence. But look at us now. Standing, breathing, armed. He raised his blade to the sky. Lightning danced down its edge and kissed the ground like fire. This isn't just a war. This is the end of an age. The Chorits banged their weapons together, the clang echoing through the air like the forge of gods ringing across mountains. We fight not to survive, but to replace. He turned fully to face the field of gods behind him, voice rising. When they fall, the world changes. We are not echoes of the past. We are the start of something new. He looked at each sibling. His voice dropped low, sharp. We were born running. Now we stand. Then louder, lightning now storming in the sky around him. And when they break against us, when Cronus sees the truth he buried rise again, he'll know. Zeus spun his blade and pointed it forward, toward the storm of titans that now darkened the valley. The gods have arrived, and the earth itself shook with their roar. 3 comments 0 votes send gifts. Titanomachy, Mount Dictys, battlefield below the gods. The titans came like a storm that didn't wait for permission. From the horizon, they surged, massive, towering, crackling with raw power. Koios with his star-forged armor gleaming like a shattered nebula. Iapetus dragging a great blade longer than most trees. Hyperion burning like a living sun. Creus breathing clouds of frost that snapped the ground into frozen plains beneath his steps. And Cronus, walking like time itself, obeyed him. The sky didn't just go dark, it folded, like the world was trying to hide from what was coming. Zeus stood still. Lightning ran across his blade, curling around his forearm like a living serpent. The moment the titans crossed the last ridge, he raised Kuranos. No signal, no trumpet, just the storm answering his call. And then, the clash. Poseidon struck first, slamming Trina into the ground. A tidal shockwave burst from the mountainside, ripping trees from the earth and sending a wall of sea force crashing into the front lines of the Titan army. Creatures of chaos went flying, slammed into rocks, tossed off cliffs, dissolved by the pressure alone. Iapetus charged through it, roaring. His blade cleaved the water in half, and he threw it into the sky like a wall. It froze midair, and then shattered, raining glass like shards of sea down across both sides. Demeter swung Gaios once, and vines erupted like spears, snapping up from the soil. They wrapped around Titan beasts, squeezing with divine force. Some screamed, some just exploded in bursts of pollen and blood. Hera sprinted forward, Nemea in hand. The spear glowed with a venomous light, and with every thrust, it sent out pulses of corrupting energy that turned Titan foot soldiers against each other. Brothers stabbed brothers, eyes rolled white, they dropped in chaos. Hestia hovered, hands glowing, pyrolithos pulsing like a second heart in her chest. With every pulse, golden fire swept across the battlefield, not burning flesh, but burning fear. Her allies stood straighter, wounds closed, screams stopped. She was the flame they leaned into. Hades descended like smoke through the ranks, his body flickering with deathlight. He slipped behind Creus, whispered something in his ear, and stabbed him through the back with a blade of cold soulsteel. Creus howled, spinning, but Hades was already gone, mist, shadows, a blink of pressure and hate. And then, Zeus moved. One blink, he was still. The next, he was above the battlefield. Kuranos lit up, skill activated, heaven splitter. He dropped the blade. A bolt of lightning the size of a mountain tore through the clouds and slammed into the Titan's second line. The ground exploded, bodies vaporized, the sky itself cracked and bled white. Cronus lifted his sickle and pointed it toward the heavens. The bolt struck him. And stopped. Time slowed, the lightning unraveled like silk, and Cronus stepped through it untouched. Behind him, his army roared. You think that's power? He growled. He slashed with his sickle. Reality bent. A wave of age washed forward, and every tree in its path shriveled into ash. Even gods had to dive aside. Hera gritted her teeth as she blocked it with Nemea, the blast still burned her hair gray at the edges. The Chorits charged. They danced in unison, spinning, flipping, blades singing through air and flesh. They carved down Titan after Titan, not with brute force, but speed, precision, rhythm. Their dance was war, and their enemies were simply out of tune. Hyperion rose, flames billowing from his body like a sun losing control. He reached for the sky and pulled it downward. Fire rained in spirals. Whole rows of demigods burned screaming. Poseidon hurled Trina. The trident pierced the storm and struck Hyperion's chest with a blast of white-blue power that turned the air to steam. Hyperion roared, stumbled, dropped to one knee, but he wasn't done. He looked up, grinning, skin melting off but flames licking stronger underneath. "You'll have to do more than that, water god." Poseidon caught his weapon and grinned right back. "I plan to." Elsewhere, Demeter faced off against Perses, a younger titan, wild and jagged, wielding a war scythe made of obsidian teeth. He swung it, and rot exploded in a radius around him. Demeter struck Gaios into the ground, and grass bloomed beneath her. Flowers opened with blood-red petals. From them came screams and seedling soldiers, clawing at Perses's legs. They dragged him down screaming. In the center of it all, Zeus clashed with Cronus. Father versus son, lightning versus time. Coronos crackled and pulsed with divine speed. Every swing bent the sky. But Cronus was faster in a way that didn't make sense. One moment, he was there, then suddenly, he'd already dodged. Already struck, already countered. They didn't speak. They didn't need to. This wasn't about who ruled. This was about who the world would belong to. Zeus swung. Cronus stepped inside the blow, slashed, and reversed time for just a moment. Blood sprayed from Zeus's side. But Zeus grinned. "You should have aimed higher." He snapped his fingers. Thunder detonated inside Cronus's ears. Skill activated. Skylard's will. The sky itself answered. Winds howled. Lightning came down not in bolts, but in walls. Cronus was buried under a dome of stormlight so bright it blinded even the gods. Silence. Then, Cronus rose, skin cracked, cloak in tatters. He was laughing. "I made you strong," he said. "But not strong enough." Zeus lowered Coronos. "We'll see." And then the battlefield ignited again. Titans screaming, gods roaring, blades clashing, the storm swallowing the sky as Olympus and Othrys collided with no mercy, no second chances. This was not a battle. It was history breaking, and the gods were writing the new page in blood. 4 comments 0 votes send gifts. I only ever wanted peace. Poseidon versus Hyperion. The battlefield cracked under their presence. Hyperion stood like a dying sun, flames swirling around him like a storm caught fire. His skin pulsed magma, heat bleeding off his shoulders in waves that turned air into distortion. He was the titan of light, of the sun before the sun, and every step he took boiled the stone beneath him. Poseidon strode through the mist like a storm made flesh. Seafoam curled around his feet, and thunderclouds formed above with every heartbeat. Trina rested across his back, humming like a deep-sea current ready to burst. Hyperion tilted his head. "You still breathe." Poseidon rolled his neck, water dripping from his brows like sweat. "Barely. Let's fix that." Hyperion grinned, and vanished. A beam of white fire split the field where Poseidon had just stood. Mountains behind him turned to ash in a blink. The flame twisted back, homing in, but Poseidon reappeared above, riding a spiral of water like a serpent through the sky. He raised Trina overhead. Skill. Sea King's Wrath. He hurled it downward. Trina spun like a whirlpool of divine pressure. It struck the ground, and the earth split. A geyser of ocean erupted beneath Hyperion, washing the fire off his body in a roaring cascade of boiling steam and pressurized force. Hyperion stumbled, heat flickering, coughing smoke, but he lifted his hand and snapped his fingers. The steam ignited. Boom! A sun bloomed between them. Poseidon was thrown back, flipping through the air. He struck a ridge with a crash and pulled himself out, singed and grinning. His arms were steaming. Trina returned to his hand with a whip of water. "You know," Poseidon muttered, spitting salt, "I hated you even before all this." Hyperion landed like a meteor, feet melting rock. "I didn't even know you before all this." "Exactly." Then they charged. Hyperion swung first. His fists weren't fists anymore. They were gauntlets of fused solar core, glowing like prisoned stars. Every strike turned the air into plasma. Poseidon blocked with Trina, each clash of their weapons turning pressure into shockwaves. Fire and water collided with such force the battlefield around them warped into glass and mist. Poseidon roared, striking the trident down. The ground fell away. A crater exploded beneath Hyperion's feet, and from it surged a whirlpool of water shaped like a serpent, its teeth made of coral and its body filled with screaming sea spirits. Hyperion slammed his fists into it. The water screamed. So did the sky. The serpent shattered into fragments, but Poseidon had already vanished into the air above. Trina was spinning in his palm like a cyclone. Skill. Leviathan Pulse. He drove the weapon down into Hyperion's chest. The trident punctured through flame and slammed Hyperion into the mountain with a thunderclap that shattered boulders for miles. Hyperion's mouth opened, but instead of sound, a pulse of light exploded from within him, turning everything around white for a moment too long. When it cleared, Poseidon was staggering. His left side burned raw. His armor peeled off in steaming strips. But Hyperion was worse. The trident had pierced deep. His fire was dimmer now. His face, partially burned into molten stone, twitched with pain. Poseidon limped forward. Trina returned to him again. "I can keep going," he said. "Can you?" Hyperion coughed, blood and flame spilling together. "Gods and titans," he growled, "we were never meant to coexist." Poseidon stabbed the trident into the ground. A wall of seawater rose behind him, hundreds of feet high. It hovered, humming. "You're right, Skill. Abyssal fall," he gestured. The ocean came down, not a wave, not a surge, a fall, as if the sea itself had decided to crash onto the world in one single, vertical act of vengeance. Hyperion roared, his entire body exploded with light. He became a ball of molten hate, punching into the wave, trying to burn it. But the sea didn't burn. It drowned him. The light vanished. Only steam remained. Poseidon collapsed to one knee, panting. Blood ran down his ribs. His hair stuck to his forehead. Trina hummed in his grip. The battlefield had grown quiet around them. Just crashing waves and thunder from other gods and titans fighting in the distance. He stood slowly, looked at the crater where Hyperion had been. There was movement. A hand rose. Hyperion pulled himself up, barely. No more fire. No more arrogance. Just a titan clinging to pride. Poseidon walked over, eyes low. He raised the trident again. "I don't hate you," he muttered. Hyperion looked up. "But I don't forgive you either." He slammed the back of the trident into Hyperion's head. The titan dropped, unconscious, maybe dead. Poseidon didn't care. He turned and looked toward the next fight, toward his brother locked with Cronus, toward the end of this war. Rain began to fall. The sea answered its king. And Poseidon walked forward, weapon in hand, god-light flashing behind his eyes. Elsewhere, the slopes beneath the war. The sky above trembled with light and death. Roars, thunder, screams. The world cracked with every clash of god and titan. But far below the battlefield, beyond the reach of blades and storms, two figures stood on a quiet ridge, watching. Gaia, and her daughter, Rhea. Gaia stood barefoot, toes in the soil, her cloak of roots and moss trailing behind her. Her hands were clasped together, shaking slightly. Her face, once timeless, now worn with grief. Eyes full of storms that never rained. "So much bloodshed," she whispered. Her voice was soft, like leaves falling. This wasn't how it was supposed to be. Above them, one of her children, a titan, screamed as they were cut down in the distance. The sound echoed across the valley like a bell tolling for an age long gone. Gaia didn't flinch, but her heart cracked again. "This wasn't the future I saw," she said, staring at the smoke rising into the clouds. "This wasn't the balance I dreamed of." Beside her, Rhea stood quiet for a long moment. Her cloak whipped in the wind, her silver hair tangled, eyes sharper than ever, but tired. Not from battle. From loss. She reached out, gently touched her mother's arm. "You don't have to watch this," Rhea said softly. "You've seen enough pain." Gaia didn't look away. "I birthed them, all of them. I watched them grow. I gave them the world." And Cronus tried to bury it in fear, Rhea replied, voice colder now. "He swallowed my children, mother. I remember their cries as he took them. I remember the silence that followed." Her hands curled into fists. "Zeus only survived because I lied. Because I hid him. That's what it took to protect a single child." Gaia said nothing. "I understand how you feel," Rhea continued. "I'm a mother too. I feel it, every scream, every blow, every loss." She looked up at the battlefield. But Cronus made his choice. And so did the titans who stood by him. They chained your other children in Tartarus. They ruled through silence, through fear, through power. You warned him. Gaia finally closed her eyes. "I did. Then let the world change," Rhea said. "Let it hurt, let it bleed, but let it change." A silence passed between them. Then Gaia finally spoke, her voice lower than before. "I only ever wanted peace." Rhea nodded, her gaze turning distant. "So did I." And high above, the war raged on, fire and lightning painting the sky in the colors of a new age being born through pain. 2 comments 0 votes send gifts. The weapon of Hades. Thunder cracked again, but this one wasn't Zeus. It came from the south ridge, where lightning hadn't touched yet. Where the clouds twisted in shades of gray-red, bleeding shadows over the torn earth. Where Iapetus stood like a walking executioner, his great blade dragging trenches through the battlefield as he moved. And across from him, Hera. She stood with her back straight, feet planted. Her long black hair whipped in the stormwind. Her armor was cracked at the shoulder, one gauntlet missing, blood running down her left arm. But Nemea, the spear forged by the Cyclops, still pulsed in her hand like it breathed. Iapetus smiled. It was sharp and cruel. I expected your brother, he said, voice like distant earthquakes. Hera didn't flinch. You got me. He pointed the massive great blade at her. It hummed with dark resonance, every scratch along the blade holding a curse older than memory. Then die like him. He moved fast, too fast for his size. But Hera was already in motion. Their weapons met with a sound that shattered a ridge in the distance. Nemea deflected the first swing, but the weight of it cracked the earth under Hera's feet. She slid backward, boots digging into the dirt. She spun, bringing her spear back around and skill. Serpent bloom. The spear bloomed open at its tip, like a flower of blades, striking in 6 directions at once. Iapetus barely dodged, his chest grazed, his cheek cut. Divine blood spilled into the dust. He roared, skill. Titan's judgment. He swung his blade in a full arc. The force didn't just move air, it moved space. Hera ducked under it, but the aftershock slammed her into the ground. She coughed blood, rolled, and sprang back up, barely in time to catch his next blow with the shaft of her spear. She grunted, her arms trembled, her legs screamed. Then she used it, skill. War pulse. She shoved the energy out from her chest. The shockwave burst around her like a bubble of wrath, sending Iapetus skidding backward, his heels carving trenches into stone. But he only grinned. You've grown, he said. Your father would be proud. Don't talk about him, Hera charged. Their weapons clashed again, and again, and again. Every strike broke something. Rocks, bones. The sky itself above them started to spin as their powers built and crashed against each other. Iapetus went wide with his blade, forcing her to leap over it. As she flipped midair, he caught her leg, and slammed her into the ground. Once, twice, she gritted her teeth, refused to scream. On the third slam, she twisted her body mid-impact and skill. Widow's coil. Vines of spectral snakes exploded from her armor, biting into Iapetus's forearms. He roared, stumbled back, and she rose like fire. She wasn't done. Skill. Queen's mandate. It wasn't a title yet, but the power inside her knew what it would become. A crown of faint starlight formed behind her head for just a moment, an illusion of destiny. And with it, her strikes grew sharper, faster, deadlier. Nemea hissed with every blow, drawing blood, cutting tendon, rattling Iapetus's bones with divine echoes. But the Titan refused to fall. Skill. Endless reprisal. He spun, a full rotation of destruction, forcing Hera back. His blade extended, lengthening mid-swing with pure Titan will. It caught her across the ribs. She stumbled, coughing red, but rolled and kicked his knee out in one motion. He dropped to one side, and she drove her spear down. He caught it with his hand. Her eyes widened. Skill. Graviton core. A pulse of raw gravitational force slammed outward from his chest, throwing Hera through 3 boulders. She hit the 4th hard. Didn't move for a second. Then, she stood, wobbled, spat blood onto her palm, wiped her mouth. Her voice came low. Do you know why I'm still standing? Iapetus wiped the blood from his mouth and rose too. No, because I'm not here to survive, she said. I'm here to end you. Then she walked, and the air followed. Nemea's shaft cracked with purple lightning as she activated her final stored strike. Skill. Curse of loyalty. It wasn't made to destroy bodies. It was made to break bonds. And as she stabbed forward, the weapon struck not just flesh, but the spiritual link between Iapetus and his blade. He gasped. His weapon flickered, its power destabilizing. And Hera took advantage. She spun once, twice, flipped behind him, and jammed the spear through his back, upward, toward his heart. He screamed, turned, barely, caught her by the throat, lifted her. His hand glowed. Skill. Titanbrand. The burning seal of the old world branded itself into her neck. She screamed now, back arching, lightning bursting from her mouth and eyes. But she didn't let go of the spear, even as her vision went white, even as blood filled her throat, even as she felt death crawl close. She didn't let go, and then, light exploded from her. The brand cracked, her eyes snapped open. Skill, divine reversal. She twisted the seal's energy backward into Iapetus's arm. It burned him, recoiling, backfiring. His skin seared black. He dropped her. She hit the ground, barely conscious, but her hand still moved. She stabbed the spear one last time, straight into his gut, and whispered, "Fall." Iapetus choked. The glow left his body. His blade fell first, then he dropped to his knees. And then, flat, Hera collapsed beside him, both of them still breathing. But only one would rise again. Deep in the heart of Mount Dictys, the forge roared, not like a fire, like something alive. The Cyclops stood in silence, only their hammers moved. Sparks sprayed across the shadows like stars being born and dying in the same breath. Brontes stepped forward first, his eye locked on the iron laid before him. It wasn't metal, it was death made solid. A black shard mined from the bones of the earth when the world was still young. He raised his hammer, slammed it down. The sound didn't echo, it sank, like the mountain swallowed it whole. Argus worked beside him, shaping something thin, precise, and cruel. Not a blade, not a crown, but a second skin for the mind. Starapus grunted, his chest heaving with every swing. With each strike, the shard split, melted, reshaped itself, not because of the heat, but because it knew who it was for. The brothers didn't speak, they didn't need to. One worked the spine, one worked the head, one worked the soul. When they finished the shaft, it was cold, not because of the forge, but because no fire dared touch it again. The prongs curved like fangs. The handle pulsed with a heartbeat. The bident wasn't made for war, it was made to end things. Then they moved on to the helms. Each one was different, but all of them, silent, meant to disappear. Not in style, in presence. One would cloud sound. One would cloud thought. One would cloud fate. When it was done, they stepped back and called out to Hades. The forge dimmed, and from the shadows, he stepped in. Eyes like night with no stars. No words. He took the bident, took the helms, and vanished, like he'd never been there. But the chill stayed. 2 comments 0 votes send gifts. Demeter and Hestia. The earth cracked again. Heavier. 2 shadows stepped out of the smoke, titans of Cronus. One was tall and lean, wrapped in spiraling roots of dead wood and rusted iron, Creus, the titan of constellations and force. The other crawled forward on 6 legs made of stone and lava, his face split by a permanent grin of jagged rock, Koios, the titan of intellect and raw will. Across from them, stood Demeter and Hestia. Demeter's hair was wild with grass and thorns, her shoulders cloaked in flowering vines that bled green fire. Her scythe glinted like moonlight off a blade of harvest, fresh, curved, and hungry. Hestia was barefoot, calm, but burning. Her eyes glowed ember red, and her breath came out like smoke. Around her, the air shimmered. Not with heat, but with home, the feeling of warmth and heart and safety made into pressure. Creus sneered, "The earth warden and the hearth. Tell me, how many fields will you grow when your blood waters them?" Demeter stepped forward, "You've ruined enough lands." Hestia's voice followed, quiet, "We're here to burn what you left behind." Creus's fist glowed with constellation runes. Koios cracked his neck and howled. Then all hell broke loose. Creus charged first, his fist trailing stardust and inertia. It hit the earth, and the plateau bent, folding upward into the sky like a wave of land. Demeter slammed her foot down, vines erupted upward, wrapping around the bending earth, snapping it back into shape. Koios screamed and launched boulders from his mouth like mortars. Hestia raised her hand, palms pulsed with hearthlight, and the boulders melted midair into sparks. Skill. Kindling barrier. A wall of fire spun in a perfect ring, catching debris, blocking shockwaves. She stepped through it like walking through a fireplace. Demeter leapt, her scythe slashed downward, clean and wide. Creus parried, but the blow carved through his left shoulder, spraying molten ichor. He howled, raised his arm, and the stars behind him aligned. Skill. Cosmic chain. A constellation blinked alive behind him, ropes of starlight lashed out, trying to bind Demeter midair. But, skill. Bloomstep. She vanished into a storm of petals, reforming behind him with her scythe aimed for his spine. He spun, too late. The blade dug in deep. Meanwhile, Koios smashed into Hestia, both arms swung like hammers. She blocked with crossed forearms. The force cracked the ground for miles, but she didn't move. Her feet were rooted in heat, in stillness. Then her eyes lit. Skill. Heart flare pulse. From her chest burst a dome of sacred fire, blasting Koios backward. His stone skin cracked and hissed. He roared and raised both hands. Skill. Thought lance. Pure mental force burst from his palms like spears of will. Hestia's barrier flickered, then broke. She was thrown backward, sliding, but not down. She landed and snapped her fingers. The battlefield trembled. Dozens of blue fires lit up from the ground, small, flickering hearths. Her aura connected to each of them. Her wounds closed. Skill. Sanctuary field. She walked forward, her presence growing heavier. Warmer. She wasn't a soldier. She was a home that refused to fall. Demeter and Crius were locked in brutal motion. His fists blazed with starburst sigils. Hers with earthlight and thornsteel. He struck with gravity. She answered with bloom and root. She slammed her scythe down. Skill. Verdant grasp. The ground split. Dozens of hands made of vines and soil grabbed Crius's legs, arms, and throat. He tried to fly. He couldn't. She surged upward, spinning the scythe. Skill. Harvest spiral. And cleaved across his body in 6 perfect lines. Crius hit the ground, ribs cracked, energy bleeding from his chest. Still, he didn't fall. Skill. Meteor brand. He drew his blade and hurled it into the sky, turning it into a falling star, targeting Demeter's soul signature. She raised her scythe and... Skill. Field break. A dome of farmland exploded around her, dirt, grass, and stalks growing at divine speed, wrapping around the meteor, and eating it. Yes, the land consumed the star. Crius stared. You. Demeter looked at him. Her eyes were sad. I am the land, Crius. You can't burn me without growing me. She raised her hand. The earth beneath him caved. Swallowed him. On the other side, Hestia fought alone. Koios's mind blades kept flashing. Each thought he sent was a weapon. Each idea, a blade. She blocked, dodged, twisted. Her aura flickered like flame against the storm of logic and pressure. Then he tried to crush her with a final attack. Skill. Thought bomb. He formed a sphere of compressed wool, black and white, a swirling sphere of pure Titan intellect, and hurled it. She caught it, and held it. Koios's eyes widened. Why won't it detonate? Hestia's voice came quiet. Because I'm not afraid of it. The sphere dimmed. Then she threw it back. And when it hit Koios, it shattered into 1,000 fragments of warmth, not destruction. It struck his mind, his memory, his emotion, and he screamed, not from pain, but from feeling again. He staggered, clawed at his own chest. His hands trembled. What is this? What did you? Hestia stepped forward, eyes glowing soft red. You forgot who you were. So I reminded you. She raised her hands. The hearths behind her flared. Skill. Soul burn. Fire surged forward, not to incinerate, but to purge. It hit Koios like a river of purity. He collapsed to his knees. Then fell, silent. Demeter limped toward her sister. Blood on her blade, grass on her legs. Hestia exhaled and turned. They looked at each other. Then at the bodies of the Titans. The battlefield was still around them. For a moment. Demeter sighed. That was worse than harvesting in winter. Hestia chuckled softly, but just as necessary. Above them, more gods screamed. The war wasn't done. But here, on this side of the field, the land still grew. The fire still burned. And the Titans were falling. The air shifted. The clouds didn't move. The winds didn't howl. There were no flashes or cries. Just silence. Until the ground cracked. And from that silence, Hades walked out. He just appeared, like the world had been hiding him until now. The battlefield darkened around him, not with shadow, but with absence. Color dulled. Sounds quieted. Even the roars of Titans in the distance softened. And in his hand, the bident. Its prongs shimmered faintly, almost flickering, like it existed halfway between this world and somewhere deeper. Somewhere forgotten. Demeter turned. Hestia straightened. Hades glanced at them both and gave a small nod. Then his gaze rose, toward the northern ridge, where Menoetius, the berserker titan of violent rage, stood watching with a twisted grin. You're late, Menoetius called, cracking his neck. You're loud, Hades replied, voice cold as deep stone. The titan laughed and dropped down from the ridge like a meteor, landing hard enough to fracture stone. His fists burned with raw divine muscle, glowing with the heat of his fury. "I'll rip your soul out and feed it to the roots of Tartarus." But Hades didn't move, he just lifted the bident. Skill, null step, in an instant, he was gone from view. Menelaus blinked, then roared as pain exploded from his shoulder. Hades appeared behind him, dragging the bident through his flesh like it was cutting butter. The Titan spun, wide arc with his flaming elbow. Hades vanished again. Then, crack, he reappeared right in front of Menelaus and drove the bident into his chest. But the Titan grinned and caught the weapon, blood pouring from his palms. Skill, fury clutch, he ignited, his entire body bursting into white-hot flames. It should have melted anyone near. But Hades didn't blink. Skill, void mantle, darkness poured from his back like a cape made of night sky. It swallowed the flame, smothered it, and turned it cold. Menelaus's face twisted. "What are you?" Hades leaned close. "Something you never faced." He twisted the bident. And, skill, soul rend, the weapon hummed, and everything inside Menelaus shook. His muscles tore themselves. His ichor ran backward. His soul, the burning, thrashing core of the Titan, split like cracked glass. He dropped, still alive, barely. "Send him under," Hestia whispered, watching. Demeter said nothing, just stared. Hades turned, bident crackling with a deep, soul-hungry hum. He lifted it once. Skill, underworld claim. The ground beneath Menelaus opened, not in flame, not in lava, but in silence. Cold, black soil swallowed him. Chains of bone wrapped his limbs. Eyes of forgotten shades blinked from the dark. And then, he was gone. Forever. The ground closed. Hades exhaled once. A shallow, steady breath. He turned back to his sisters. Demeter stared at the earth where the Titan vanished. "I see why you don't like coming topside." Hestia smiled faintly. "Glad you did today." Hades gave a half shrug. Someone had to clean up. Above them, thunder cracked again. This one was Zeus. The final part of the war was near. And the children of Cronus. They were winning. Final moment one. The ground trembled, not from footsteps, not from storms. From will. Cronus stood in the center of the chaos like a god already crowned, his scythe dragging through the dust as if the earth itself bent to his presence. His cloak tore in the wind. His eyes glowed with time forgotten, eyes that had seen the rise of the Titans and swore they'd never see their fall. Zeus stood across from him. No crown, no throne, no kingdom behind him. Only thunder in his bones, lightning in his breath. His fingers twitched, and the sky answered. A single bolt slammed down at his feet. The ground hissed and split. Sparks crackled around his armor, and his eyes burned gold. Cronus spoke first. "You dare challenge me with the sky? That sky belongs to me." Zeus raised his hand. Lightning coiled around his wrist like a serpent. "Then I'll take it back." He didn't wait. Skill, thunderstep. He vanished into light. Cronus snarled. The scythe moved, ripping open the air where Zeus had just been. But Zeus reappeared above, hurling a bolt as thick as a river. Cronus spun the scythe in a wide arc. Time slowed. The bolt froze midair. Skill, epic rewind. Cronus reversed the lightning back at Zeus. But Zeus caught it, redirected it, slammed it into the ground below Cronus's feet. The earth exploded. Cronus flew backward, caught midair by his own time magic. He righted himself and glared. "You learned some tricks." Zeus wiped blood from his chin. "Your existence taught me how to." Their energies clashed in the sky, lightning against time. Storm clouds warped, rain fell up, thunder screamed sideways. Far off, Hades walked slowly across the battlefield. Quiet, focused, his helm already in place. The bident at his side pulsed with stillness. He didn't run, he didn't shout, he didn't need to. As he walked, shadows moved. One Titan turned to face him, Koios. The Titan of intelligence, one of Cronus's last commanders. "Shadow-born brat," Koios said. Hades didn't stop. He raised the bident and pointed. Skill, null omen. The wind died, so did sound. Everything near them froze. Koios swung his blade, but it made no noise. He stepped forward, but his foot didn't touch ground. Hades blinked, and Koios fell, his mind cut from the world. One Titan gone, no fanfare. Back above, Zeus and Cronus clashed again. Skill, temporal rift. Cronus carved through the sky. The tear in time cut open a void of slow motion, everything moved like syrup inside. Zeus gritted his teeth. He roared in. Skill, sky tyrant surge. Lightning exploded from his body in all directions, fracturing the temporal field. His body reappeared at the edge of the rift, burned, bloodied, but alive. Cronus appeared beside him instantly. He swung the scythe. Zeus ducked. The blade sliced the side of his helmet. Skill. Divine counter. Zeus grabbed Cronus's wrist and slammed a bolt point blank into his chest. Cronus flew backward, crashing into a mountain face. But he rose again, slower this time. You're bleeding, Zeus said. I have bled before, Cronus answered, and I still rule. Not for long. Elsewhere, Demeter dragged a titan through a wall of vines. Her armor was covered in green thorns. Her eyes shimmered like moonlight through leaves. The titan she battled, Crius, swung his club through her midsection. Skill. Verdant decoy. She burst into leaves, reappeared behind him. Skill. Grove rend. She slashed with a curved sickle. Roots erupted from the ground, coiling around Crius's arms and legs, locking him in place. Then Hestia arrived behind her, burning. Her flame was not wildfire. It was hearthfire, calm, contained, until it wasn't. Skill. Hearthbreaker. She slammed her hand into the ground. Fire tunneled under the battlefield. Exploded beneath Crius. He screamed as divine flames engulfed him. Demeter reached out, called her vines back. Crius dropped, scorched and bound. Hestia exhaled. Another one down. Back at the sky's edge, Cronus and Zeus were now trading full-scale divine attacks. Cronus threw his hand up. Skill. World pause. Everything stilled. The sky, the ground, even Zeus. Cronus moved forward, slowly, methodically. He raised his scythe. But Zeus's eye flickered. Skill. Stormwind. He was still thinking, still aware. The moment Cronus swung, Zeus countered, moved just enough. The scythe grazed his shoulder. Zeus's fist met Cronus's ribs. Lightning poured into the titan's body like a flood. The time field shattered. Both were flung apart again, crashing into the shattered hills below. Their breaths came heavier now. Cronus stood, blood dripping from his mouth. You are not stronger. I don't need to be, Zeus answered. I just have to make sure you fall. A few ridges away, Poseidon dragged Hyperion's unconscious body across the rocks. He looked up at the storm above. At Zeus. He's still fighting. He turned his head, and in the valley below, he saw Asterius, the last of Cronus's enforcers, tearing through the front lines. Poseidon tightened his grip on Trina. I'm not done either. He jumped. Water exploded from his boots, launching him across the battlefield. Skill. Tide rain. A wall of water shaped like a serpent crashed into Asterius, pulling him away from the defenders. Asterius roared and turned, his arms glowing gold with raw titan energy. Skill. Pillar break. He slammed the ground. The water shattered into steam. But Poseidon was already in front of him. Skill. Deep crash. Trina hit his chest like a thunderclap. Bones broke. Asterius coughed blood. Poseidon kicked him into a boulder. You're in my way. Back in the sky, Cronus raised his scythe once more. Time rippled. Space thinned. Skill. Omega rend. The blade struck forward in a path meant to erase Zeus completely, past, present, future. Zeus closed his eyes. Lightning burst out, but not upward. It burst inward. Skill. Absolute Thunderheart. Zeus became a bolt, not wrapped in lightning. He was lightning. He slammed into the Omega rend and passed through it, shattering it like glass. Cronus's eyes widened. Zeus reformed behind him. Punched him in the spine with thunder wrapped around his fist. Cronus fell to a knee. Zeus floated above him, chest heaving. This is your last moment, old king. Cronus growled. I am time, and I am done waiting. Zeus raised his hand high. The sky screamed. Skill. Final skybolt. A bolt larger than any mountain formed overhead. It wasn't fire. It wasn't storm. It was divinity, forged from will. Zeus hurled it. Cronus rose and met it with the scythe. They clashed. Time against thunder. Age against youth. Father against son. The world split. A crater a mile wide burst into existence. When the light cleared, Zeus stood alone. His armor was nearly gone. His hands bled, but Cronus was down, buried under stone. His scythe snapped, his chest barely moving. Zeus didn't smile. He looked at the others. Poseidon, still fighting. Hades, already done. Hera, still breathing. Demeter, Hestia, all of them, still standing. The war wasn't over, but the end had begun. To be continued. Thanks for watching.